Dap-a-doo, dap-a-doo, two white guys in a wheelchair.
Here we go.
Boom. Now we're live.
There you go.
All right. So, okay. Hello, everyone.
How's it going?
Welcome to our studio podcast. Today we have Dawn
Thanks for having me.
from Shirley's Greenhouse.
Thanks
Yes.
for coming on.
Thank you for coming on. And she's going to let us know what you need to ask your grocer / farmer,
Your farmer.
about
Produce.
and how to, like, what are the important things to ask so that you know what you're getting.
Yep.
So before
Highest caliber vegetable possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Dawn, before we get into that, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of maybe where you're from, up to I think we'll dive into that first. We'll go from where you're from, where you've been, and then what's led you to here today.
Sounds great.
Okay.
So, like you said, I'm Dawn. I own and operate Shirley's Greenhouse. I'm a single mom farmer and doing it on my own, along with my team that I have on the farm. I can't do it totally by myself. I have a great team behind me. I'm a second generation farmer. So my parents started Shirley's Greenhouse 30-ish years ago. And so they had their greenhouse by Airdrie. They grew long English cucumbers, sold them to the warehouse, made a great living. I grew up like that. About 17 years ago, they sold, we built, and so that's how I'm second generation got going there. So
Pretty cool.
So were they in Didsbury as well too?
Airdrie.
They were in Airdrie.
I grew up west of Airdrie.
Okay. West of Airdrie. And
It's now a pot plant.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Were they greenhouse farmers as well too?
Yeah, so my parents grew long English cucumbers.
Okay.
So they had 26,000 square feet, and I have 36,000 square feet of greenhouse.
Okay.
Which sounds big, but it's very, very little for the industry.
Mm-hmm. I've been. It's big, so you can only imagine what a big greenhouse might be. I haven't been to a industrial sized.
I've been in there acres and acres and acres. So I'm just shy of 1 acre, and I've been in a 20-acre greenhouse.
Wow,
Yes,
that's pretty crazy.
20 times bigger than me.
Wow.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So it was your mom and dad. That was their operation.
Yeah, so my mom is Shirley.
Okay.
So that's where you get the Shirley's Greenhouse from. And I answer to Shirley. So if I was walking down a hallway or walking through the mall, I get it all the time actually at the mall. I'll walk through the mall and people walk up to me and they'll be like, I know you from somewhere. And I'll be like, yep, you probably do. And then I'll say, as soon as I say it, you're going to know it. And then I say Shirley's Greenhouse. They go, oh yeah, the best tomatoes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
you're Shirley.
Yeah.
Sure.
But if I was walking there and they said, hey, Shirley, I turn and talk.
Yeah.
I don't correct people either.
Yeah.
The funniest was when we were at farmers markets and Shirley was helping me, and people would call me Shirley in front of Shirley.
And then you'd both answer.
Yeah, we'd either both answer or I'd answer and she'd just stay quiet.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Call me whatever you want to.
Yeah. So how did your parents get into the greenhouse business?
So I grew up in Montgomery, and my dad worked in Calgary, and he wanted to get into farming, and so he looked into different things, dairy farming and different things, and he settled on greenhouse. So we moved north of Calgary. Simons Valley Greenhouse was their first greenhouse, and on Simons Valley Road there, and so.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, started there and moved eventually to the other place.
So how old would you have been when that move happened?
5.
Okay, so pretty
Yes.
young. So
Yes.
pretty much right
Yes.
when you start remembering stuff.
Yes, I can. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you moved out, and then so what was life living with parents owning a greenhouse? What was that like?
It was good. Like I said, my parents made a great living. So I had my mom and my dad home most of the time when I was young, which was great. Like, and we had to work. I mean, if you don't work, you don't eat. So, we got sent to work. And so, yeah, it was a family affair, and we picked cucumbers and we wrapped cucumbers. And back then we actually grew in sawdust bags. And so I can remember as a kid filling sawdust bags and sawdust bags and sawdust bags. I hated that job, but yeah.
So did you have any siblings or was it just you?
I'm the oldest of 6 kids.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you were kind of the lead hand.
The guinea pig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so how and are those siblings still farmers, or have they gone and done something else?
They've dabbled in farming here and there, but they're gone and done something else. I'm the one that kind of took over the company name.
Yeah.
I didn't take over the company because my parents kind of didn't sell out, but they branched it a different way, and then we started ours. So it was kind of separate, but I just took the name. That's all.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And so are they still in Calgary, Didsbury?
My
Calgary
siblings?
Yeah. Or have they gone to different parts of the
They're
world?
up north. Yeah.
Up north.
Yeah.
By up north, you mean Didsbury or?
No, like Spruce View and Lacombe. My mom's actually in Lacombe now. She remarried.
Okay.
I lost my dad 14 years ago. So.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Life happens. Life's tough sometimes.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. And brothers, up in Rimbey area.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're the furthest south of your family.
I guess I am now. I never thought of that before.
Are you guys all pretty close?
Yeah. It gets different when you get older.
For
You get into your own and you do your own thing and you find your own lives and you have your own kids and Yep.
Nice.
So.
And you okay, so you grew up kind of on the cucumber farm. So did you go to would it have been Airdrie High, kind of that?
Burt Church.
Burt Church.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Burt Church in Airdrie, graduated from there a year early.
Nice. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I hated high school. I always had a job growing up. Like, I had no intention of, like, being academic at all. So I worked at Super Value, the grocery store, and
Was that besides the farming, was that your first job?
a little bakery was my first job
Okay.
at 14
Okay.
yeah.
Where was that?
in Airdrie.
Is that still around? Or?
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
it's long gone.
Were you a baker?
No, I just front end
Oh, okay.
cashier kind of thing. Yeah,
Okay.
it was fun. Grew up in Airdrie. Graduated a year early, and the counselor, I remember the guidance counselor, they're like, well, you should, instead of graduating a year early, you should come back and upgrade for college and university. And I'm like, if I want to go to college and university, I'll upgrade then. I would rather go to Bible school, where I liked a boy. And that's what I did. I've always been stubborn like that.
Mm-hmm.
When I get it in my head that I'm going to do something, like,
Watch out, world.
Why didn't you?
Yes.
Why didn't you like high school?
Who wants to sit in a desk? Not me.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain parts of high school that I could go back to now. I'd love to learn more history and that kind of stuff, but forget the math and forget the, that kind of thing. I'm trying to write a book.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's,
Okay, we're gonna come back to that later. I'm excited about it. So you graduated early. You're like, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah.
So you went to
Bible school.
Okay, so what is, for people who don't know, what is Bible school?
So I went to Bible school. Who I was then and who I am now are two very different people. But yeah, I went to Bible school looking for a husband, and that didn't work out for me. But so you just learn about the Bible.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. And that was in Airdrie as well?
No, that was in Saskatchewan.
Okay.
So I moved out when I was 17.
Yep.
And went to Saskatchewan. My youngest sister was actually born in November, and I moved out in September. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
yeah, I was young.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Out.
where in Saskatchewan was this school?
Nipawin.
Nipawin. Where is that in relation to? I know where Regina and Saskatchewan is. Or
Saskatoon.
And Saskatoon is.
So it is 3 hours northeast of Saskatoon.
Okay.
Middle of nowhere.
Nice.
Yes.
Very cold.
Yes. You know Saskatchewan?
Yeah, my dad's side of the family is all from out there.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
pretty well versed.
Yeah.
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 How long were you out there before and where did you? Okay, so
So I was there for
you're
3 years.
in search of a husband. No
Failed.
no husband.
No husband.
And then you
Came back to Alberta.
Yep.
Was working in Kananaskis, then moved home and started going to a little church outside of Carstairs. Met a husband there, and then moved to Didsbury area.
Okay.
And he's the one that I started the greenhouse with. My
Okay.
ex-husband.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Not a bad guy, but just ex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then you guys had some kids together?
3. I got 3 daughters.
Okay.
So at this moment, they are almost 12, almost 14, and 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of just getting in the middle of high school, or just kind of
Yes.
about to enter high school.
Yes.
kind
And
of
they
thing?
work for me.
Yeah.
Oh, they ever since they were 3 years old, we'd be going through the grocery line and they'd be like, "Mom, can I have candy? Mom, can I have this?" And I would turn to them, 3 years old, and I'd look at them and I'd say, "Go get a job and you can get whatever you want to."
Yeah.
Like, you don't work, you don't eat. So
Yeah.
my kids, they know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My oldest just is in the process of buying her first car. I'm not buying it for her.
Go her.
She's got to do it for herself. Yeah.
Go her.
Yeah.
Go her. What she getting? What are her eyes on?
She bought my mom's old car, so she's in a payment plan with my mom. It's it's a weird car. Gold. It's gold.
Nice. Gold's a good color.
Hyundai Azera or something. I don't know. Something weird.
Nice.
But
Eric, what was your first car?
GMC Sierra 2006.
Nice.
Nice.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, RIP is right.
Yeah. I think
My brother totaled it when
Oh shoot.
I was in the hospital.
my first car was also my grandma's car.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a 2003, also a gold car.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Lexus, so I was very excited.
Mm-hmm.
I like that car.
Yeah, ES 300, and my brother also totaled my car.
What is it with those brothers? Hey. Actually, my first truck was a little blue. Oh, it was teeny. I forget what it was called. A little blue truck, and my brother was 12, and we were maybe driving down the country road, and he put it in the ditch. He didn't total it, but he did put it in the ditch at 12 years old.
Nice, man,
Yeah.
brothers, man.
Yeah, yeah.
They're a lot to handle.
Yeah.
Jeez
Yeah.
Louise.
And I remember he jumped out of the car, or out of the truck. It was a little, I forget what kind of truck it was. Anyways, he jumped out right away as soon as we hit the ditch and stopped. He jumped out, and he jumped out and was running around the truck, and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Don't hit me! Don't hit me!"
I'm sorry. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was funny.
Yeah. Where is that car now today? Do you know?
I don't know. He bought it off of me, and then he maybe hit too many deer when he was living out
okay.
east.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
I don't know. Yeah,
In a scrapyard somewhere, maybe.
in a scrapyard, probably someplace. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where my truck is.
R.I.P. First cars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you moved back to Airdrie.
No,
Husband.
Didsbury.
Sorry. Excuse me, Didsbury. Is that the same property that you're on
Yeah.
today?
So when we first got married, we were on a different property. Then we bought this. It was quarter section, and we bought that, and we were going to get into farming. And so how we got into greenhouses, again, he wanted to be a farmer. He grew up on a dairy farm, and so we wanted to get into farming. And so we decided greenhouse or dairy farm, and we went for greenhouse. So yeah.
And so what was there a greenhouse on that property
Nope.
before?
We built it from scratch.
Okay, so what goes into the planning and development building phase of a greenhouse? What are some things that you're thinking about while you're building it?
For the first thing you need is good water. If you don't have good water, you have nothing. Water is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the first thing we did. We went to our dugout, took a water sample, brought it away. Is this water any good for the plants? And so it came back. And
Do you need to be near like a source of like fresh water?
Yeah, so you have to have a dugout.
Yeah.
In order to.
So could you
make
explain
it.
what because
What is
I
a
remember
dugout?
when I came up to visit, you kept saying dugout, and I was like, okay, I don't really know what that is. I'm not going to say anything. And then you kind of explained it as you were touring me around. So for people who don't know, can you explain what a dugout
Yeah,
is?
for sure. So a dugout is you dig into the ground and you basically build a huge pond, a big water pond. And so my dugout is, I'm not sure, maybe the size of a football field.
Yeah. It's big. I've seen it.
It is big, yeah.
Okay, so you...
And I actually have two of them. So now I actually built another dugout for my wastewater because I grow hydroponics. I have a lot of wastewater that comes off my plants. And so I put that into another dugout. And then from there, I water my field crops.
Mhm. And so when wastewater is that's gray water, right?
Yeah. So in hydroponics, you put your water in, you put your water and nutrients into the plants, and then you get wastewater.
Mhm.
Like you put your nutrients in, and then waste comes out. And so the wastewater, there still is some nutrients in there, and so I take that wastewater and put it into the other dugout.
Yeah.
So and then the other plants like it because it's still got some nutrients.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so water critical when thinking about building a greenhouse. Absolutely critical.
Yes.
Okay. And do you know what like when you take your sample what you're looking for from that water or
I'm
or
a
not really?
consultant for this stuff.
Okay, yeah,
So
fair enough.
sometimes
I
if
know
you're
that
going to
can-
ask me some questions, I'm going to be like, I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
EC and pH. You need like nutrients. Like I add elemental fertilizer to my water. So I take the water sample. I know what's the base in there.
Yeah.
And then I add calcium and magnesium and, all kinds of different things. Iron, copper. Like it's down to the gram as to what I put in my fertilizer tank.
Okay.
Because just like people, we need nutrients. Plants need nutrients to grow.
Yeah.
So that's what hydroponics is.
Yeah.
You give them exactly what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No more, no less. Right in the perfect window. There,
Hopefully.
right? Yeah. That's what you're shooting for.
That's what you're shooting for. Yeah.
Okay. So besides water, having enough water, big dugout.
I've pumped water 3 times in the last year.
I was, so in my research, I was kind of scrolling through your Instagram. I saw that you had a situation where you had to borrow water from your neighbors.
3 times. So we've had drought years. Even last year, like 2 years ago was awful. I almost lost the farm. Last year we had rain in the spring, which saved it. But like by fall, like we hadn't had any rain from July till Thanksgiving. And so, I had to pump water again from the neighbor's place, 1.5 miles.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Shout out neighbors. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, without your neighbors on a farm, like,
Yeah.
neighbors are important.
Yeah. I'd like to talk more about kind of, like if you mentioned more than a few times, like to make a farm work, you need a village a bit. So I'd like to talk more about that, maybe, and how to build that village.
Yeah.
But going back to building the greenhouse, what, so water's important. What are some other things that you need to consider?
Land, you have to have land. And you have to have land to be able to grow. Most greenhouses grow bigger. I didn't, but most greenhouses grow bigger. Flat land, because you have to put your greenhouse on flat land. So if you were on, a hill or rocks or whatever, you couldn't do it. So we scraped the land clear, made a big clay pad, put the greenhouse on top. It's a Westbrook greenhouse. So that's kind of a...
Westbrook meaning?
Westbrook is like the brand.
Oh, okay.
So I went with a Westbrook greenhouse because they're kind of like the Cadillac of greenhouses. Yeah. It's plastic, so it's a big plastic. I call it a plastic snow, like a plastic bag, and then I put it in a snowbank. So we can talk about natural gas prices.
Yeah. We'll get into that. Yeah.
So built it all. I grow on troughs, so my plants sit on big troughs, and then I put my grow bags on there. My plants grow up strings, and so the strings are probably about 14 feet in the air, and then my tomato plants, we keep dropping and lowering them. So by the time I'm done in the year, they're about 70 feet long.
So when you started building, so you guys bought the property, and did you start building right away, pretty much? Or
A year later or 2 years later.
Okay.
No, 3 years later.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was like the design, and was that your guys' full-time thing while you were building that, or were you doing something else while you were?
My ex had a job, and so here's the thing. I wanted to be the stay-at-home mom. I wanted to be barefoot and pregnant. So when my ex said, should we build the greenhouse? I looked at him and I said, yep, that's good. But I said, I want to be the mom. I want to cook and clean and do the laundry and do the dishes and plant the garden and help you for sure, and work are we allowed to swear on here?
Yes. Yeah,
work my ass off is like, I will do that for you. But I want to do the girl job and you do the boy job.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's maybe not politically correct, but
no, it's all good. Yeah.
I'm me. So, so that was the goal. Mm-hmm. That's not how it turned out, but that was the goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of you guys were kind of, at the beginning, kind of like both working on that to start the
yes.
Okay.
And we were going to do, so this is a good time to say that. So we were going to do the same thing. So we were going to grow long English cucumbers, send them to the warehouse goes to grocery store goes to consumer. We were going to do that, have that process. We were going to be exactly like my parents.
Yeah. So the mom and dad model. All right. That seeed to work out pretty well. Let's do that. Yeah.
But it didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And the reason for that is by the time we built our greenhouse, minimum wage had gone up a lot. The bill, like our mortgage was crazy. And then.
So, sorry, what kind of year was this? Just so we.
So that was 2007 when we built.
Okay.
So 2007, 2008. Again,
nice.
It was rough, right?
Right in the best time to have a mortgage.
Yeah. So, and then without growing experience and things like that, yeah, it was a tough go.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were going to do the same thing to the warehouse, but yeah, cucumber prices hadn't changed. So this is something interesting. Cucumber prices were $7 a dozen to the wholesaler on average, back when, when I was, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Yeah.
When we started, they were $7 a dozen, and it wouldn't surprise me even if still they were $7 a dozen or around there.
Wow.
So
it's been consistent for
pretty much,
many,
or
many years.
it hasn't followed, the warehouse pricing hasn't gone up to reflect the cost of producing it.
Yeah.
And so in farming, in all agriculture, you have to get bigger. So I don't know do you know much about like grain farming?
A little bit, but
so if you have
pretend that we don't really know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have 1/4 section of land, your combine's $1 million, right? If you have 1/4 section of land and you're trying to pay for that combine, you can't, right? Whereas if you have 20 sections of land, you can take that combine payment and put it over 20 sections.
Yeah.
So the same thing in my industry. 1 acre of greenhouse, you still have inputs and infrastructure and things like that. And so let's say the profit margins, I don't know, I'm just throwing out numbers. These are not real numbers, but like 25 cents on a dozen.
Yeah.
Well, if you have 100 dozen, your profit margin is little. Whereas if you have 1,000 dozen, you have more, so
making more.
You have to scale it up.
Volume game. Yeah.
It is a volume game. And so, but because we only had our size greenhouse and we didn't get bigger, it got tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher.
Inputs go up, outputs stay the same.
Yes, exactly.
I read this funny, speaking of kind of like funny quotes, I saw this thing, this quote, and it's, I didn't want to work the 9 to 5, so now I just work 24/7.
Absolutely. Everyone thinks, oh, you work for yourself, you have all this money and you have all, no, that's not actually how it works. I've even left the farm sometimes with my staff there, and this is kind of rude, but I've even said it. I'm like, I'm off to earn your paycheck, because that's kind of, sometimes you get into pickles like that, and you're like, my team, my staff, they come first, right? I'm going to pay them before I pay anybody else. And so, yeah, it's
rarely as, grass is always greener kind of thing. It's rarely the case.
No,
rarely the case.
But I do thrive and love what I do. I love what I do.
Yeah. I think that's the most important thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking a little bit about, we use the grain model, wholesale model kind of thing. So for your situation, we build so you guys build the greenhouse.
Yeah.
And okay, mortgage going up.
Labor, everything.
Inputs are
natural gas. Yeah.
Inputs are not matching outputs.
No.
So I guess at that point, when do you start to realize, oh shit, what we had planned for is not going to work?
Early on.
Okay.
Early on. So that's when I went to the first farmer's market that I went to. So I brought long English cucumbers.
And which one was this?
Olds.
Okay.
Olds Farmer's Market. And so I went there. I think I had maybe only 2 babies then.
Yeah. So
brought my babies, brought my cucumbers, went to the farmer's market.
And so how, sorry to cut you off, but how old would you have been? And this would have been 2007, 2008 still? Or
no, that would have been maybe 2009, 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did you have your first baby?
7. I was pregnant when we built the greenhouse.
Okay. Yeah.
So we were building the greenhouse, and I wasn't going into labor, so I was like walking parts back and forth, just trying to like get this baby out. Yeah. So, I went to the first farmer's market, sold some long English cucumbers, and walked away with, a couple $100. And I'm like, ooh, this worked. So the next year I brought some tomatoes and cucumbers. We planted a few tomatoes, and everyone went crazy for our tomatoes. My tomatoes are sweeter. And it's because I've
had them. They're very tasty.
Salty water. Yeah. Thank you. Kept selling out of tomatoes. And so the next year I went to 2 farmers markets. I went to Olds and Three Hills. And then I just kept adding farmers markets after farmers markets, slowly getting out of the wholesale game. At that point we were selling direct to grocery store, which made a difference. So, wholesale was, let's say, $7 a dozen. Direct to grocery store was about 12, And then direct to consumer was 18 to 24 at that point. Well, 18 probably about that point.
Still, that's kind of like the 09, 10, like 2010,
Yeah, 9,
2011.
10, 11. I had my third baby in 11, and I had a C-section, and I was at a farmer's market 3 weeks after a C-section. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Big.
Yeah, you do it.
Talk about a turnaround.
Yeah, exactly. You got to do what you got to do, and so yeah.
I saw this funny I think it was Instagram reel or TikTok, and it was I think the account, the guy's like a surgeon or a doctor or like an ER doctor or something like that, and he's just like, yeah, we got a farmer in here. He says he really messed up his hand, and then he's like, a farmer said that. It's like, get that man in here. Like, those guys never come in unless it's really bad.
I know, exactly. And then it was something about the pain, and they're like, and then he said, well, I'm in here, ain't I?
Yeah.
And then they're like, they put like the skull and crossbones up. Oh, I saw that one. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah. I mean, farmers are some of the toughest human beings on the planet. Like, yeah. Because you got to do it. Like, you're responsible. Yeah. If you don't do it, like there's no such thing as a day off, or like if you don't do your job and do your job well, you lose the farm. Yeah. Like, I saw a meme too about farming kids, how they like had to do their chores, and like for city kids, it's like take out the garbage once a week. For farm kids, it's like, no, we might lose the frickin' farm if you don't do your chores. Like, yeah. There's just a whole lot more on the line.
Yeah. The stakes are a bit higher. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I've been outside at 2 a.m, trying to deal with Christmas 2 years ago, Christmas Eve 2 years ago. My boiler wasn't doing like, I had to turn it on and off, and I was outside every 2 hours Christmas Eve 2 years ago. Yeah. Just to keep my greenhouse from freezing.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm really grateful that you made the time to come on this podcast today, because I know that.
Oh, this wouldn't happen in June or July or August.
Yeah, so I know that 2 to 3 hours can be. It's a critical. That's a big chunk of the day, and there's lots of stuff to do in each day. So
I love what I do, and I love talking about what I do, and I love educating people on farming. Right?
Yeah. And I think that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on, is because I think you're a fountain of knowledge when it comes to produce and farming in general. And I think I know for me, like, for the uninitiated, it can be intimidating, because there's so much to know. But I think at the end of the day, it's really important to know.
I think people that don't farm have these ideologies of what farming is and how nice. They have all these great things that they think and see, and then they also put their ideologies on, well, you should do this in farming, and you should do that in farming, and we need to do it like this and like this and like this. I mean, especially when it comes to pesticides and things like that. But people don't understand the industry. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to do surgery on someone. That'd be a bad idea, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. The mythos doesn't really reflect reality all the time.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Or rarely, I should say.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love educating people about farming, and about food and food production and what it takes, and the kind of grit and balls it takes to do what I do.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
we need farming. It's so important. Did you see the comedian talking about liberals versus Republicans? He's like, yeah, you can't need a podcast, can you? Because he's in New York. So you guys would die in a day without Republicans. It was really funny.
Well, and exactly, no farmers, no food. Like, I sometimes I get a little type happy on Facebook. And there was someone talking about a work week, going to a 4-day work week, and how that's better for people. And I said, try being a farmer. Like, again, on call 24/7, and I think the comment was something about a grocery store, and I'm like, are you even kidding me? Like, if where do you think that stuff comes from? Like,
yeah. Well, I think
I think it depends on the sector, I guess.
Yeah, I think it depends on the sector, but also like the people, like, I think that's one of the reasons I think for this podcast why we want a broad range of people on, is that people get siloed in their day-to-day life. Yep. And it's like if you live a certain lifestyle and where it's like, oh yeah, it's like, it's not make or break that I go to work every day. Like, sure, that makes sense for you, but that does not mean that it makes sense for everyone.
No.
And I think it's important to consider that when, you know, like when you go out and, you know, make bold statements. So,
Yeah.
and I think we live in a world where, you know, like there's lots of bold statements being made every day.
Yes.
So it's like, it's also important to like, you know, like take a step back and like, I don't know, think a little more kind of critically about how the structure of, you know, this lovely place we call society works.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, when you put on someone else's glasses, you know, like the way I see the world is totally different than the way you see the world or you see the world. Like it's all from your perspective and, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it takes a lot of time to listen to people. And I think that's what, you know, gets, you know, lost a little bit. You know, people don't have the patience to listen, hear people's perspectives.
Do you see what's on my shirt? It says
People over politics.
people over politics.
I like that. I think that, I would disagree. I think most people want to listen, but who you hear is not most people.
Yeah.
I think most people have the patience to listen and to. I think that's the wide. Like if you think about it like a bell curve, most bell curve, the people in the bell curve, they're going to be listening. It's like what you hear are like those two freaking those little extremes, right?
The extremes, And it's when the extremes think that I'm right and you're wrong, and that's just the way it is. The one size fits all. That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's, in my opinion, not reality. Like
No.
it's
No.
You have to be able to have conversations with people and, you know, disagree.
And respect someone that's different than you are.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
That's where it's at, is you can have a differing opinion, but you just got to be kind and accept someone for who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
That's biblical.
Yeah, learned that in grade 2.
Yeah, exactly. Love it.
Okay.
That's a little like rabbit trail.
Yeah. I was gonna say, bringing it back here a little bit, and I'd love to. We can a little bit later in the podcast we can kind of go into that, but I want to get your kind of the origin stories of Dawn down, just so like people know, because I think it's like it's crazy interesting, and it's like this life isn't the easy life. And so it's like, okay, so why does this person want to do the hard, like you say, you love what you do, and I think it's really important what you do. And so, but I want to get into like, okay, what curveballs did life throw you to get you to where you are today?
Yes. So we were talking about, oops, I just bumped that.
You're good.
We were talking about kids and going to farmers markets and things like that. So I did that for a number of years, and slowly, and again, I don't want to speak ill of my ex-husband, but slowly we learned different strengths and weaknesses. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. And then we over time learned, because remember I said I wanted to be the stay-at-home mom, I just bought him out 2 years ago off the farm. So how does a girl get from there to there? Well, you know, I picked up more balls. You know, we got to make this work. And my strength is figuring it out and trying to make it work. Because in farming, there's always problems. There's always something going wrong. There's always something that you got to be doing. But that's business too. You got like fires to put out and things like that, and making different decisions. And we learned that was my strength, and that sales and marketing was my strength. So put me in front of a farmer's market, like in front of people, and I love people, right?
Yeah.
So that's what
You're
made
very,
me tick.
What is it? Gregarious, likable, and you're able to,
you don't know me very well, but
you speak well, and
thank you.
And it comes across that you're authentic in what you're saying as well.
Oh, there's only one way to be, and that's authentic.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing. So I was just picking it up, and eventually we kind of swapped roles a bit, and then eventually our marriage did end, and I bought him out. So I went from being this woman who wanted to be the stay-at-home mom to this, people call me a feminist all the time, and I'm just like, no, I'm just doing what I had to do first of all, and I love it now. Like I'm a strong, independent, bullheaded, my balls hang around my knees woman. Like that's who I am.
A businesswoman. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that's my take of you when
Thank you.
when we meet.
Yes.
Okay, so
a little rough around the edges sometimes, though.
That's all right. We everyone is when you look close enough.
I was still a farmer.
Yeah. Okay, so kind of during this time, you're expanding into different farmers markets. So when did you come to Calgary? When was the first Calgary's farmers market that you did?
I started in at Parkdale Farmers Market.
Okay, yeah, right by my.
West Calgary Farmers Market. Then I landed at Hillhurst Sunnyside Farmers Market. I've been there ever since. I've gotten around different farmers markets here and there. So, yeah, and just expanding more and more and more into farmers markets and less and less and less into wholesale. And then eventually 5 years ago, we dropped the grocery stores as well. So at this moment, I direct market everything I produce. So if I grow it on my farm, I have to find the sales outlet and I have to sell it. And most of it, 80% of it, is from me to the customer. So there is zero middle guy.
Yeah. So yeah, and
I also do field crops.
Field crops.
So this is another little story if you're interested.
Sure.
So maybe 10 years ago, we started, I thought, man, if we're going to go to farmers markets with cucumbers, tomatoes, and peppers, why wouldn't we just do potatoes, carrots, onions, beets? We have this land, may as well do some more. And my mother-in-law at that point, she looked out her window, and we were doing 1 acre of garden that year. And she looked out the window and said to my ex-husband, she said, that's a lot of garden. What are you going to do if it doesn't work? And he just looked at his mom and he's like, no, what's she going to want to do next year if it does work? And so we went from 1 to 3 to 6 to last year I did 15.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you do direct with that crop as well too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cut out the grocery stores. So yeah.
Perfect.
So can I say something a little like politicky?
Sure. Go for it.
So 4 or 5 years ago, we pulled out of out of grocery stores, and so I was in 2 local small grocery stores, close to my town. And they said, well, you need this Canada Gap certification in order to be able to sell through us. And I said, well, that's a pretty big program. Like, that's a $7,000 touch to be able to sell like 20 grand worth of produce through your store. Like this,
it doesn't really
doesn't make sense for me. And I said, Canada Gap makes sense if you're taking potatoes from Prince Edward Island and you're putting them straight across Canada. Yes, you want traceability. Yes, you want to know, but I said, for you and for me, small town grocery store to the local farmer, come on out, have a look at my greenhouse. Like, we're good. And if something were to happen, it's going to be pretty obvious, like, because I'm not across Canada.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we can't do it. And I said, okay, because you can't give in to the small producer, because at that point I was getting smaller and smaller and smaller in the industry. Then I can no longer sell your stuff. So I pulled my stuff from the grocery store shelves.
So what year would have that been where you went totally?
4 or 5 years ago.
And so doesn't really matter which grocer it is, but was that, like, I guess it depends. Was that like a major chain or not a major chain? Like,
the major chains needed to follow this corporate bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Whereas the littler chains, the privately owned chains, didn't have to follow that.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a corporation rule, not a
legal. Like,
no, not a government or whatever. But I did say then, I believe in the name of health and safety. And I can see other things happening, possibly, hopefully I'm wrong, in the future. That in the name of health and safety, we're going to see large corporations team up with large corporate farms, team up with the government to give us our food system.
Yeah. I think that's a freaking awful idea for anyone listening. That's my opinion. That's how literally everyone in the Ukraine died.
So I'm not interested in it.
That was kind of Stalin's policy. So anyone, not to say that that's theoretically what they're trying to do, but the path to hell is paved with good intentions. So,
yes, and so if that ever happens, that you have to jump through these hoops and these hoops. The day is coming, I believe, and I really hope I'm wrong, that it will be harder and harder and eventually illegal for me to sell someone a tomato.
Yeah. I think when you gave me the tour of the place, Did we touch on politics? We started going going into it a little bit on that.
What year was that?
It must have been 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it must have been
pre-COVID, post-COVID.
I think it was, I can't remember.
Mid-COVID.
Mid-COVID maybe. Yeah. But I think we touched on that a little bit, and that's one of the reasons why I think people should know about that, because I remember, so my first experience with kind of that situation too was this was out in Ontario. Was we were trying to do a barbecue fundraiser for Movember.
Okay.
And just buy a burger, besides cost, proceeds go to our campaign, right? And it was pretty interesting because there was so many, and the whole reason, right, is liability, right? It all comes back to liability, and so theoretically someone can't sue you.
Yes.
But at what cost does it, because it was, I remember going through the bureaucracy of the university, and there was so many rules around selling food. You had to make sure, you had to be, you're pretty much the barbecue almost had to be never used before. I don't think that's a bit of hyperbole, but it was something, it was like that. It's things need to be so sanitary and clean that there's absolutely zero chance that someone's going to get sick from your food, possibly. And I think about kind of stories anecdotally from my parents and my grandparents. I have Italian heritage, so food is an immense part of our kind of culture. And there was so many fundraisers in community halls and things based on, let's make a shit ton of lasagna for people, or spaghetti, and I see that less and less, and it has to be. It's that catering kind of thing. You're not allowed to do it yourself, kind of. Well, and maybe I shouldn't. I'm kind of speaking out of turn. I don't know if you're not allowed to do that yourself, but I don't really see that. Everything is kind of, when it comes to food, it's it has to be catered out. It has to be.
It's more and more about the rules and regulations, and what if someone this and what if someone that. I mean, right now in Canada, it is illegal, and a farmer could go to jail for more time for selling raw, unpasteurized milk to a customer than if I forget what it was, but it was something crazy. You can go to jail for that, but you don't go to jail for, I don't know, stealing or whatever it was. Don't quote me on that, but it's crazy. The rules and regulations and bureaucracy were getting more and more and more. And you're right. It's based on liability, who's going to sue who. And that's where it's at. It's about I was actually in a human rights course not that long ago. And I maybe stirred the pot a little bit. And so I said, whatever happened to life's just not fair. I mean, sometimes life's not fair. And so that's what I want to teach my kids, that, shit happens and it's not fair, and you just got to do the best you can and be positive and know.
And even with that, it's there's no such thing as a zero risk transaction.
No. No. No.
You can fool yourself into easy. People get fooled into I'm for sure this is going to happen, but it's there's no such thing as for sure in life.
No.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I think that'd be an interesting guest to have on, is kind of the other side, cuz I have a propensity for risk, and also a propensity to distrust authority. But and that could be
that's probably why we get along.
Yeah, exactly. So I know for myself, it's watch out, right? So, but I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to see the take on the other side, and if there's anything that really holds up. Because for me, right as of right now today, where it's I don't know. These rules are kind of just rules to. To pass off liability, but it's okay, I don't know. It'd be interesting. We see. That's what. Yeah. We should.
I had a health inspector about 2 years ago in the height of COVID. I said to her, I sent her an email, and I said to her in that email, I said, sometimes what's moral and ethical isn't necessarily law or mandate. And then she looked at me after. I said, "Did you get my email?" She said, "Yeah, I did, and I don't like you, Dawn." And I'm okay. You don't need to leak me.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that's as the world, I think my midterm and long-term view of the world in general is that I'm very bullish volatility. As things get crazier, I think next 10, 20, 30 years, a lot of craziness. Okay. So
I hope we're wrong.
Yeah. Me too.
I hope we're wrong.
Me too. But I think, long term, I'm pretty bullish. Like I think, like I said, in that bell curve of people, like the people that you don't really hear from, who are just normal people, like those people are great. Those people are awesome. And then I think but regardless, like I think there's like a lot of technology stuff happening. There's a lot of weird, like the kind of institutions that you've been able to rely on for a long time, or, you know, maybe not as effective as they once were, because like, you know, like even like this podcast, or like how the majority of people interact is like and for better or for worse, is through social media and your phone, right? These institutions that were put in place have not been able to keep up with the pace of how people change, or changing how they communicate, right? So it's like they either have to catch up or kind of crumble and rebuild. And, you know, whatever happens, I don't know, right? But, you know, kind of seems like that's, and maybe it's somewhere in between, a mixture of those two things. But regardless, when institutions don't work, you know, things aren't great for most people. Yeah. And so I think,
I mean, look at when the debit machine goes down.
Yeah.
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 If a debit machine goes down, like everyone is in trouble.
Yeah. The Interact system was, Oh, I think this.
So technology, right?
Yeah.
So when we're reliant on technology, that, you know, like.
Yeah.
I think it was Rogers that went out for like a full day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
It was
used their phones, and
people
were trying to call 911. They couldn't.
Yeah.
So it's like,
that's like I think that's a debate people have been having for a long time: centralization versus decentralization. Okay. We're getting into politics. And,
I love politics.
And we're getting metaphysical here. So, you're out of the grocery store.
Yeah.
You're selling direct as much as you can to direct to consumer.
Yeah.
Or are you as of right now, are you 100% direct to consumer, or?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
I do sell to a few places like YYC Growers, and you know, I sell through Innisfil Growers and things like that, but mostly I shake the hands of the customers.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite farmers market in Calgary?
In Calgary, yes.
Are you gonna say, or keep it? You'll let the proprietors of the farmers market debate who they know who they are.
You know what my favorite is? My favorite is the customer. It doesn't matter which market I'm at. It's the people. It's knowing the people. It's being able to, you know, share with them and share in their lives every week and meet them where they're at, and, you know, hear their stories about who they are and what they're doing and things like that. It's the relationship. I love the relationship. That's what I love.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
That's more important. That's more important to me than anything else that I do.
Yeah.
Is that,
and
that
from my
relationship.
interactions with you, that really comes across.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe this is a good segue. Okay, so kind of, I guess we've kind of talked about kind of where you're from, kind of.
Yeah.
We brought it up to today a little bit. So you're in. So how many farmers markets in total are you in? So you're in quite a few in Calgary.
I get around.
Yeah. But are you? And I would imagine you're in Didsbury and Olds as well too.
So I own a store in Olds Uptown Market.
Okay.
So I started my own little grocery store. So I didn't love how the farmers market was being run in Olds, and so I
cut out the middleman.
Yep. And I started my own. And so I started my own store, and that's been really good for me. I've joined farmers markets. I've left farmers markets. Farmers markets are very politicky and very like. So back to your original question, like when you go to a farmer's market, you have to really know your farmer and ask lots of questions. Who grew it? Where did it come from? When was it picked? How was it grown? And really get to know like what you are buying, because there is a lot of, not everything that glitters is gold, right? And so there's a lot of buying and selling of vegetables as quote unquote farm. It's been raised on a farm for sure, but like whose farm? Where?
How many hands has it touched?
How was it?
Here?
Yeah, exactly. How many times was it bought and sold before it got there? How old is it? You know, things like that. And so you really got to know your farmer. Who grew it? Where did it come from? When was it picked? How was it grown?
Yeah. Okay. So
those are good questions to ask when you go to a farmer's market.
And what should you want to hear from the farmer when Like, what should you be looking to hear? Like, what is...
Well, the biggest thing you can look for is stickers. So if you see stickers, like, you know those little stickers when you buy an apple, there's a sticker on it. So that sticker means that apple has been meant for a warehouse. So when we sold our long English cucumbers, my cucumbers still have the wrap on them that say Shirley's Greenhouse with the barcode. Yep. That is meant for the warehouse to grocery store for that system. Mm-hmm. The stuff that's, farm direct usually doesn't have that. Mm-hmm. So
okay, so
that's one telltale sign.
Okay.
And then ask, like, can I Google your farm? Can I look it up? Can I come visit? Can I,
And so what are some red flags to look out for?
Stickers.
Okay.
I think too, someone that has absolutely everything. So if they've got bananas on their table, you kind of go, Yeah. We don't have bananas in Alberta.
Yeah.
We don't have bananas in Canada, So, Mm-hmm. So if they're buying and selling bananas, what else, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's another little
thing to
look out for. Okay. And then Google the farm. I mean, how many acres did they grow? How many square feet of greenhouse? How many acres of farm? Because, you could have a little plot in the city grow one row of carrots and then be like, oh, I grew all these carrots, right? So for me, I do buy and sell a little bit. So I buy and sell from Hutterites. But for what's really important to me is the authenticity, transparency. So when I sell Hutterite carrots, let's say, on my sticker on my table, I say Hutterite carrots. And so when someone asks me, well, is there pesticide on that? I'll be like, I don't know. Yeah. Ask the Hutterite. Like, yeah. I can't, my guess is this, but
I don't know for sure.
I didn't grow it. Yeah. But I can sure tell you about these cucumbers, and I can sure tell you about those tomatoes, and I can sure tell you about the potatoes or the kale or whatever else I have that I grew, because I know what I did with my food.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would rather tell the truth and lose the sale than to lie and make a buck.
Yeah.
I won't.
Yeah.
I'd rather go broke.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's an important piece, because that's the more you dive into, I think, any industry, you see the juxtaposition of value creation versus value taking.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's a lot of incentive to value take from a customer. So it's like extract value from someone rather than create value for someone. Right. So if I have like $10, right, it's like, I want to buy, like, there's somewhere out in the world probably where you could buy Keurig coffee and they'll sell it to you for $10, right? Or you could buy, for that same $10, you could buy another coffee, and so it costs them like 5 cents to make, versus, okay, it cost you for your coffee, for example, maybe it cost them $5 to make. You also charge $10, but it's actually a much better coffee.
So I have that all the time at farmers markets. So people, two things. First, when I have my customers, I always say, I guarantee my vegetables a week. I say, you eat what you take them home. If you have a bad bag or something, you eat what you can, you compost the rest, you come back whenever you see me. I don't even care, a different farmer's market. And you just say, oh, I had the bad bag. And then I say, no problem. Here you go. I replace it up. No questions asked. Because it happens so rarely that, and I stand behind my stuff, right? Yeah. And then I've also had customers, I've started being a little bit mouthy, because I've had people come up to my table and say, ooh, that's kind of expensive. And I'd start saying, well, my gas bill and my labor bill, and, I'm a small producer, and these are higher quality tomatoes. They taste like tomatoes, not like cardboard. If you buy, this is what I started saying too, if you buy them and don't like them, I will personally drive double the money back to your home and give it back to you. And I've never had that happen.
Yeah.
But I've still had people complain about the price, and finally I just look at them and I say, go
somewhere else.
Yeah.
We're
not speaking the same language here. We're not doing the same thing, and so there's a better fit for you somewhere else.
Yeah. Rick, you've been a little quiet over there. You've been taking things in.
I've been taking it all in. Like my grandparents, they both grew up on farms.
Yeah.
Nancy and Harvey. Yeah, in Saskatchewan.
Nice.
But I don't really know a ton about farming, so I'm just kind of sorry if I'm being quiet. I'm just kind of
Learning.
taking
That's
it all in,
fantastic.
yeah.
If you have a question, like, let me know, or
Yeah,
text me
absolutely.
later and if you have a question too.
Yeah,
like,
will do. In terms of the pesticides and chemicals and stuff
Yes.
like that, so if you don't use a lot of that stuff, you have to like duel it out with the rabbits, or how does that work?
No, I don't have rabbits on the farm, but great question. I get that asked all the time. So on my farm, I am not organic because I still use elemental fertilizer, but I do grow without pesticide unless certified organic product is used. So herbicide would actually kill all my plants. I have charcoal filters that filter out anything from my dugout residue from wherever, because anything in tomatoes, they're dead like that.
Yeah.
And then as far as fungicide and insecticide goes, if I were to ever use anything, which you have to sometimes, I mean, I grow cabbages, and you won't, your choice in cabbages is like cabbages with worms, cabbages that have been grown under a net for the butterflies, or cabbages that have had the organic spray on it, or cabbages that have had the non-organic spray, the good stuff, right? And so I grow with the certified organic spray.
Okay.
Because if I didn't do that, I'd have to do the netting, which would be a nightmare, or you'd have worms. Like that's your choice. Even I've heard with cherries, you have organic cherries that have netting over them, or you have worm cherries, or you have sprayed cherries. Like those are your choices. Like,
Yeah.
So what's the difference between what is the organic spray versus what's the difference between the
so
I
natural,
guess like conventional conventional versus organic,
so,
right?
So conventional, so conventional spray would be like a chemical, whereas organic is more of like a biological. So it would be a bacteria that gets on the worm, which makes the worm die.
And then that bacteria or whatever will it will die eventually and biodegrade kind of thing.
And then so because it's so people always think if something's organic, it hasn't been sprayed, and that's not truthful. So when I see people say spray free, I think, do you actually know that the farmer didn't spray anything? Because even the certified organic guys will spray. So and that's why
if
I
it says
say
spray free, you should be looking for the worms.
Yeah. I mean, and depending on what the product is, right? Like, and so in the greenhouse, I use a lot of good bugs to eat the bad bugs. So, so I just got my first bug shipment yesterday and put them out.
What are
good bugs?
Yeah.
Good bugs?
Like dragonflies?
No. So I buy Colmani, fiddle ladies.
Fiddle lady, is that a species of ladybug, or that's
No, fiddle ladies is a stinging wasp kind of thing, like a parasitic wasp that will sting the aphid, and then the aphid will die. I hate aphids. They're born pregnant, and they're nasty.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, they're awful. You have one aphid, you have 5 billion.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah. And so a lot of people think, oh, you're in a greenhouse, so you don't have bugs. And I'm like, no, it's like prime area, good climate. So I have more bugs. So, but I buy lots of bugs. I spend thousands of dollars every year on bugs.
Who's your main bug supplier?
Copert, Canada.
Copert?
Yeah. And so some of it comes from the Netherlands. The Netherlands is kind of the greenhouse capital of the world. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What
My seed all comes from the Netherlands.
What is it about the Netherlands that promotes?
Well, they're Dutch. I mean, if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. Dutch background. Sorry.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Shout out to all the Dutch people listening.
Exactly. Dutch are like they're smart farmers. Like they greenhouses and dairy farms, and they're entrepreneurs. That's how the Dutch are.
To rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
When you were making the choice from, vegetables and what you're growing now, from when you guys started, or sorry, I might be a little confused. Was it your parents that were making the decision between like a dairy farm and a vegetable farm?
I think my parents were trying to choose between that, but for sure, me and my ex-husband were choosing dairy farm and greenhouse.
Okay.
So for sure that we were making that decision, and so we went greenhouse because it was a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
See, in dairy farming, you have that quota system, and so you have to buy the quota in order to be allowed to sell.
Could you explain the quota system? Because
Yes.
I remember a friend of mine, a mutual friend of ours, Rob. He worked on a
Shout out.
dairy farm in
Yeah.
high school, and I remember he thought the quota system was the coolest thing, and so he told me about it, and I thought it was super interesting. Could you?
There's
like,
good things and bad things.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's kind of what
there
I've come
just
to
like
understand.
everything in life, there's positives and negatives. It depends on which glasses you put on.
Yeah.
So there's two industries, agriculture industries that have the quota system. One is poultry, one is dairy, milk products. And so it is the quota, you buy your quota, which means you're allowed to sell. And so in the dairy industry, you're not even really supposed to sell milk unless you have quota. I think, I don't quote me on that, but you for sure are not allowed to sell unpasteurized milk, which I disagree with, but yeah. But so you have to have your quota in order to be able to sell. And so what it does, the positive with that is you are guaranteed a price. Like you're guaranteed so much a liter. So that helps you budget and farm
Yeah.
better that way.
Yeah.
But the negative of it is like you can't just get into the industry. Like,
yeah, it's a
and
high
quota
cost
is
of-
really expensive. And the other thing is if you go above your quota, you have to dump it down the drain.
Yeah.
So then you waste milk.
Yeah.
Right? So it's you have to fit that system. In poultry, if you have more than 299 laying hens, you have to buy quota. So on my farm, I've got chickens, so I have to have 299 chickens or less, or I'll have to buy quota.
Yeah. Where
And
did-
quota's expensive.
Yeah, yeah. So like a quota is usually priced per chicken or just through a certain allotment.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think it's per liter and per butter fats in milk and probably per chicken
Some
or
weird
per
metric kind of thing.
per something. I'm not. I know enough to slightly know about
Yeah.
that system
Yeah.
just because I'm
We'll
a farmer.
bring a dairy farmer on or a,
Yeah.
or a chicken farmer on.
Is
Yeah.
Daryl Sutter? What kind of farm does he have? Do you know?
I don't know. I've heard
I
heard
know
rumors that he's a big cattle guy.
Okay.
He's got a lot of head of cattle, but
Yeah.
that's a bit of a different
My
whole
neighbor's
different thing, too.
Chicken Jeff, and he's a big chicken farmer.
chicken Jeff. Okay, maybe maybe you can put in a good word if you enjoy this.
Yes.
You can say, oh yeah, we got these
Yeah.
two guys in Calgary. They're doing
Yeah.
some weird thing. Go check them out.
Talk to Chicken Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite.
Is-
I get my water from him. He helps me out a lot actually.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
there a lot of wildlife that you guys have to deal with?
So I'm east of the QE2 highway, so we're kind of boring out there. And so yeah, I've got some deer once in a while, coyotes, but
Yeah.
I have sheep, so I have a sheepdog, but she protects my sheep
Yeah,
from the coyotes.
she's cool, but
Yeah.
with sheep, that's one of the things. Yeah, you told me because is it a
Pyrenees.
Pyrenees? Yeah, great. So a big white dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a picture of her on your Instagram.
Yeah.
Super cute, but
Yeah.
you don't get near it.
No, actually she's kind of taken on, like she's started liking people a bit, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want her with people, I want her with my sheep.
Yeah.
And so I've had to start to like go back to your sheep, like get out of here, because
Yeah.
I don't want her in the greenhouse. I don't want her with my staff. I don't want her running up to whoever drives
Her
in my
job-
yard.
Her job
Her
is with
job
the sheep.
is my
Protect the
sheep.
Yeah.
And so if she starts being too friendly, I go back to your sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the things when you were showing me around. It's okay. Yep, sheep are cool, but what's her name? The
Bo Peep.
Bo Peep.
Little
yeah.
Bo Peep.
Yeah,
Has her sheep.
super cute, but also like she was eyeing me up pretty good. She's like, oh, you're not from around here. You're not
No.
supposed to be here.
And they're
That-
not, she's
I
not
respect it.
dangerous,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't, like, I don't want people petting her.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
not a pet.
Yeah, she's on the clock. She's working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. She lives outside 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Some people might think that's cruel, but she doesn't want to be in my house either.
Dogs are dogs, man. Dogs love being outside.
Well, and she lives with a sheep. I don't want that shit in my house. Like, yeah.
Fair
yeah.
enough. Also,
Yeah, I take my boots off at the door. Like,
yeah. Okay, so going back to the quota system a little bit, where does that come from? Like that's 'cause
government.
yeah, and that's a federal policy.
Yes.
Or okay.
Yeah. Poultry might be province to province.
For
But
the
dairy is definitely federal.
for the big time city boy here,
I love it.
what exactly is the quota system?
So it's your right to be able to sell milk or
Okay.
to sell. So you're allowed to sell so much, right? And so in the chicken, like you have to fill your quota. So you have your so many chickens, and then you
Yeah.
sell them to the big chicken factory. And
And then is there like an annual fee that goes with that, or do they do an assessment like every year?
I don't know, but I do know to buy milk quota is millions.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's expensive.
It's pretty pricey. I remember my friend who, not an expert, but kind of from my memory of it, it's like, and if you're a dairy farmer or someone who knows the quota system in the comments, please correct us. I think it's something like, the way he explained it, was like 50 grand per cow or something like that. And then
It's crazy.
Okay, I thought you were like, no, that's wrong. Okay.
No,
but-
it's crazy.
Yeah, and then it's like your cow has to produce like $50,000 worth of like milk or something
Yeah.
like that, and then that's it, and then you sell that milk at a guaranteed price.
It's the
kind of thing.
guaranteed price part that is the positive of that system.
Yeah. So if you're like a dairy farmer, it's like, for sure I know I'm getting paid for this cow, like
Yes.
theoretically.
Yeah.
And then
So you can budget. You can count on so many dollars, because as long as you get the milk and you'll sell it, and whereas like with grain, your prices go up and down. With your beef, your prices go up and down. With cucumbers, even your prices go up and down. But
Yeah. Are cucumbers a commodity? Like, are they traded as a commodity? Like, you can buy cucumber futures or something like that?
what?
Because like for cattle or pigs and but
There's like a set price.
but wheat, grain, whatever. Like a lot of the big farmers to
You
to
pre-sell
hedge-
it.
Yeah, like you to
Yes.
hedge from like a movement in price. They'll okay, grain is trading at this today. I can buy a future to lock in it's selling at that price in the future.
Yeah. But
really.
again, I'm kind of out of the wholesale world. Like,
Yeah.
I know the big
Yeah.
growers in Alberta, but I'm out of that world.
Okay, so that's more in the wholesale.
It would be in the wholesale part, not in the
Yeah, not in the
farmer's
small
market.
scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious because for I heard a story that the reason that onions are not on, so like if you look up like a list of commodities, there's like a list of a bunch of different stuff. So it goes from, there's a bunch of veggies, grains, whatever, and then it will give you like today's spot price. So that today I think it's Chicago Mercantile Exchange, that's like where the price is settled, and then it will have like futures prices is like 30 days out, 60 days out, 90 days out, or I think you can do yearly as well too. But the reason why onions are not listed on there is because some guy in I think it was the 30s or 40s, cornered the entire onion market.
Oh.
And it went infinite, right? So it's like onions became infinitely expensive because
Okay.
of some guy, some finance guy was like, all right, yeah, we're going to corner the onion market. And then, it became, I can't remember. It was a food crisis. So Congress passed it. Onions are no longer allowed to be traded on the futures exchange.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Crazy.
it was I've talked to a couple like bigger wholesale people who will kind of use that as it's kind of like a risk, and this is kind of what I swear this comes back to a question for you. He uses it because a lot of like rotational conventional farmers, they'll rotate between, I think it's grain, soybean,
Canola.
Canola is a big one here,
Yeah.
and I think I might be missing one, but
Barley.
yeah.
Wheat.
But one of the things I wanted to ask you about was how does like farm insurance work? Because you mentioned like the stakes are high if things
Yes.
go wrong.
Yes. So for my type of farming with my garden, because I'm little, on my field crops, I don't have hail insurance, because how do you insure one row of zucchinis or 10 rows of zucchinis?
Yeah.
Like, crop insurance works for quarter sections or, 80 acres or things
Yeah.
like that. So I don't my crop insurance, like I've never had crop insurance because it's too expensive.
There's no micro insurance or anything
No,
like that.
no. But then they're like the grain farmers and they all have crop insurance. And I'm not sure all the ins and outs on that. You'll have to talk to a grain farmer about that. But
no, I was just wondering if there's like something like that for smaller.
No, not for what I do.
Because it's like the stakes are still high, but it's just because it's like the for the big grain farmer, it's like the stakes aren't different, right? It's like it's still you're losing the farm.
So I had a horrific year 2 years ago. So it was drought. I had just bought it off my ex-husband.
Middle of COVID.
I had hired. It was the year after 2021. So 2020 was probably the best farming year I've ever had. 2020. Oh, wow. 2020 was the best. 2021 was like probably record for the worst. I had hired a manager who, anyways, I don't want to get too much into that, but my labor bill got way, way, way out of whack, and it just compounded, and I had a bad year. The bank almost took the farm.
Yeah.
I almost sold it. That's kind of when you met or saw me or came to the farm, whatever. So my stress level was through the roof. But drought that year. And so people always say like farming, like it's high roller gambling. Like I don't go to Vegas to go gambling.
Yeah, your
like,
whole life's
it's a daily thing, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so like I lost so much money that year. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And so last year was much better and I made up ground, and this year's even better. So
Hell yeah. Knock wood. Hopefully it keeps going that way.
I hope so. So last year I had a little bit of hail, but I would take the little bit of hail over the drought any day of the week.
Yeah.
So
how does your greenhouse? So I would imagine the hail is a big problem for your garden. Which
yes,
and
that's
when I say garden, it's like the biggest garden you've ever thought of. It's more of a field of vegetables.
It is. Yes. It's people always say I get people apply to the farm and they're like, "Oh, I want to come work for you." And I'm like, "Okay." They're like, "I like gardening." I'm like, "This is not this is gardening on steroids." Like, how do you feel about plus 30 out in the garden, weeding on your hands and knees for 8 hours? Like that is like it's intense. Like it's not fun. Like gardening is fun. This is not fun.
This isn't. It's not recreation. It's work.
No, exactly. Like, and so I bring in guys from Mexico actually, and they are happy to do it. They've got the stamina. They've got the work ethic. They do a really good job. I'm so thankful. Actually, during COVID, that was really interesting too. During COVID, remember all the airports shut down?
Yep.
And so the farmers in Canada, so everyone that brings in these it's called seasonal agriculture worker program. So we bring them all in from Mexico to come work in Canada for the summer and then send them all back. The farmers all got together and said to Trudeau that year, like, we're not planting our crops if you don't get us our guys. Like this isn't going to happen. Yeah. And so I remember I got my first guy. It was May, that first month of COVID. I drove to the Calgary airport to pick him up from the airport. I drove in, and you know how crazy that airport is. I drove in to where where you normally drive through and you park, get someone quick and then leave.
Yep.
I drove in there, parked, walked in, spent half an hour inside the building, went back to my vehicle and left. Like that's how dead it was. It was crazy.
Yeah, I remember I think I had to pick up during that whole time I had to take one flight leaving, and then I picked up someone. Mm-hmm. And it was an interesting juxtaposition because it's like you go
creepy,
and two because it's like the whole expansion, like the airport expansion. So it's like a lot bigger than it once was.
Yeah,
it's usually very busy.
Yeah,
and then it's like literally no one's there.
There was nobody there. Yeah. Like to be able to park. Like leave my vehicle and park and go in, and no one said anything because like
no one cares. It's like,
there was plenty of parking. Like it was crazy. Yeah.
COVID on the farm must have been a bit different as well. Hey.
So when COVID hit, it was crazy. So I was direct marketing, right? So I'm out with the public and things like that. And people were scared. I mean, people didn't want to get it and people were on high alert and people were, and so I don't even know how many clothes with bleach. And I made the bins that went off the farm. We made them come back and get bleached. And like we were intense just because I didn't want This is just my perspective, but I didn't want my farm to get COVID because I didn't want the stigma of having COVID on my farm.
Sure.
And I didn't want people afraid of my food, right? So I went crazy, like, to the point I ended up moving back on the farm. We were separated at that point, but we were still in business together, but we had 2 houses on the farm. And so he lived in one and I made the kids live with him and I stayed in the other one, and he was on farm and I was off farm. And so that was just the first few months of COVID, but yeah. That first year of COVID, the farm actually thrived because people weren't going to, and I feel bad for the restaurant industry, but people weren't going to restaurants. And so they were cooking at home. And so the farm did really well that year because people were buying their groceries, right?
Yeah. Along that line, what, and this might be anecdotal for me, but it seemed that there was and I think this is, I think people talk about this, like a shift in perspective of buying things and
buy local?
Yeah, that buy local kind of movement, or I don't know what you really call it, but I think that happened quite. I felt like because there was a big kind of like slowing down and reprioritizing things. So I think like a lot of people over COVID, there was a lot of thoughts on like, okay, what am I doing for my health? Like how, and so did you notice like in terms of customers, people kind of coming to you with kind of that change of mindset, like wanting to learn more about where their food comes from?
Absolutely. And cooking. There was a big uptick on cooking, buying local, supporting your local farmer, especially in COVID too, where we were set up. Sometimes we were more outdoors that summer. And so people felt safer to come to the farmer's market outdoors as opposed to going to a grocery store. Like that first year of COVID was wild, right? And so, and then support the little guy. And there was a lot. And you had more time then, right? You weren't as busy because you weren't going here and there and doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that. Everyone had time to slow down and just be. People ask me can I switch on to something? People ask me all the time about plastic. Yeah. So, and I was just thinking of this because people were coming to the farmer's market, grabbing their produce or their food, and then going home and cooking it. I get asked all the time about plastic, like how can we get rid of plastic? How can we get rid of plastic? And I always just say to them, like, the day we get rid of grocery stores is the day we get rid of plastic. Because have you been to Italy? Like your family's from Italy.
Yep.
So do you go kind of every day or every 2 days down to the local market, buy your ingredients, take them home, and you cook at home?
Yeah, there's definitely there's like there's less siloing for like there's big grocery stores there, right? And where you can like get that would be analogous to like a big grocery store here, right? But then I would say like the culture is to do that, like what you're talking about, more so. Yeah. And it's more mixed. Like you're doing that a lot more often than we're here. It's like, ooh, like let's go to the farmer's market, take my picture. This is great.
Yeah, exactly. Once a week or once a month.
Yeah, hey, it's not necessarily like incorporated into day-to-day life. Yeah.
So for me, like my best customers and my favorite customers are the ones that I see every week, because without me, they don't eat, and without them, I don't have a farm. Like they go hand in hand. Yeah. And so people ask about plastic, and then I say, well, until we get rid of the grocery stores and we only like go to the farmer's market every day, you pick up your food, and that's how we can get rid of plastic. Mm-hmm. And so like stop the consumerism, like this is the problem, like the paper cups and the and I'm guilty of it as I'm sitting here.
Everyone is, right?
Yes.
And it's not gonna it's because it's ubiquitous to day-to-day life at this point.
But during COVID it slowed down, right? So people came to the farmer's market, got their food for the week, and came to the next farmer's market. I saw people a couple times a week even. Yeah. Because they just needed food.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as well too, it's like the way to behavior change is, it's rarely, to shame someone rarely is effective at changing behavior. I think, like knowledge, like education, and just like being like, oh, hey, like this is, if you want this to change, like these are some things that you can do. Yeah. Boom. All right. Not like, oh, you should feel bad, man. Like, oh, you went and got some Tim Hortons. I don't know, like.
Well, judgment. Society has a huge
yeah.
problem with judgment. Don't
It's
you?
like, relax.
I just wrote a whole book on a whole chapter in my book on judgment.
Yeah. Maybe that's a good time to bring that up.
Well,
so yeah, you mentioned earlier that you were writing a book. Or?
I just want to tell my story.
Sure. Yeah.
That's it. That's the so I'm 6,000 words into like a 30,000 word goal, and so yeah, I just want to tell my story because I'm from such a conservative background, and because of where I've been on my journey personally. It's mostly a personal book, but I just want to tell my story.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
Do you have a working title for it?
I don't fit in a box.
Yeah. I like that one.
Yeah, because I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. We'll be looking out for it.
Yeah.
So when did you have you always thought about wanting to write a book?
No, it was just after it was my divorce actually. So now we're going to get really personal. Okay. It was after my divorce. So good Christian girls don't get divorced. And so I
could
divorced.
imagine. Yeah. A lot of like we talk about judgment and like society and like it's a lot of that comes from within too, right?
Yes.
It's like you grow up a certain way. These certain values kind of.
You put them on yourselves.
Yeah. And then it's like, it's not even, you think other people are thinking of this of you, but it's like most people, they just care about themselves, right?
Yeah,
so it's just in your head where it's like,
it was, but then growing up in the church, it is in there too, but that's a whole other story. Yeah. I still go to church sometimes, but I'm less judgmental. Like I
seek to understand before being understood.
Exactly. Like I wrote this whole big email to a girl one time. Horrible. I was a horrible human. I judged her. She left her husband. Great reason to, whatever their story. And then it happened to me, and I was like, "Oh, fuck, that was so bad." And I apologized to her, like, because you don't know. Like one woman, she walked up to me after I left my husband, and she said, "And where are you living now, Dawn?" And I said, "Well, I moved to the staff house in town." She said, "Well, I disagree with that decision." She said, "If my mother were alive, she could tell you what hard times are." And I said, and she said, "You don't even know what hard times are." And I got this close to her face, and I said, "Have you ever walked in my fucking shoes, lived in my fucking house, slept in my fucking bed? Then you don't really fucking know, do you?"
Yeah.
So
each person's on their own journey.
Exactly.
And everyone's at a different stage in their life.
Exactly. And you don't know what it's like to walk in their shoes. Like, we need to all start being more gracious and kind. And that's one thing COVID did. It brought out the, the fight in people and the whatever. We touched on it earlier. One of my absolute favorite conversations during COVID was I was in a farmer's market, and there was a person there, and we couldn't have been on more opposite pages. Like, voted opposite, thought how COVID was handled was completely opposite. Like, we couldn't have been further apart. And that entire conversation, that entire market, we just built those little bridges, tried to listen and hear the other person's perspective and go, okay, I hear and see what you're saying, and I can see how you would believe that and how that would work for you, but I don't agree with you. But and so by the end of that conversation, we hugged and, best conversation I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that we're like trying to show on this as well too. But also like, that's what I believe as well too, is that like at the end of the day, like there's lots that differentiate people. And I think those things should be celebrated, but I believe there's way more that brings people that are united on.
Yes.
Than differentiated by.
Well, and what was the golden rule that you said earlier?
Treat others how you want to be treated.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, you don't have to agree with someone just to be kind to them. Like, not at all. You just have to be like, okay, well, you're different than me, and that's okay. Let me hear about you, and then let me tell you about me. Like,
and then we can find a
common ground from there. And if we can't, we can say, okay, well, I respect you and you respect me, and we'll just be kind. Like, hello in the grocery store. Nothing wrong with that.
It'd
you know?
So nice.
My kids can play with your kids. Like,
Yeah, you don't have to be at everyone's neck all the time.
No.
I think that was and I don't know if this is just a personal journey for myself through COVID, but it seemed like that was really there. And then there was this like deep exhaustion that this is I guess just for me, that like occurred with, I think, everyone, where it's like, man, it sucks to just be like on edge and angry at everyone all the time, or just like not either angry or like fearful, or because, you know, like, yeah, that was a big part of it. Fear does crazy things, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, it just is not
And it was
fun.
fear on both sides.
Yeah. People are the reason both people. Yeah, I'm scared that I'm getting my rights taken their way. I'm scared I'm gonna die. Right? Like,
Exactly.
both people are scared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was all very fear driven.
Yeah, and it was pretty wild. But I think anecdotally, at least, I think you kind of brought it up. It's like the importance of grace.
Yes.
And the importance of like giving others grace is like a big thing, where it's like, okay, like,
Yes.
hey, like, you know, no, I like saying it's like no man's an island.
Yeah.
Like the idea of the self-made person, that person, does a lot, but there's a lot of people that brought you or shaped you to
Exactly.
where you are right now, right?
And where you are and what your journey's been and things like that. So I'll just say it, because I'm not shy and I'm public, but I'm not vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason for that is I just left a church that told me what I had to do, when I had to do it, where I had to do it, and how I had to do it. And next thing you know, like a year later, I've got a government telling me I had to do this, and 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 that I'm a bad person if I didn't. And that was the hardest part, is to think that I was a bad person because I made this choice. Like that was really, really hard. And so at a farmer's market one time, there was a woman walked up to me, and I love this woman. I still love her. She's one of my favorite customers. I met her probably 12 years ago. Her little kids would eat my vegetables. Her little girl will only eat my vegetables. Nice. And so, but we're very different, very, very different. And so, we had a conversation one week about the vaccine, and then I almost went to go get it. And then the next week, then the mandates and stuff came out. And then, I don't know if you want to put this all in there, but then the mandates came out, and she came in the next week to the farmer's market booth.
Water or coffee? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
She came the next week to the farmer's market booth, and I had a whole lineup of people, and she asked me if I was vaccinated, and I just burst into tears. I just burst in bawling, crying in front of all of this whole booth full of people, because it was just such a hard line, right? There was this, and then there was this, right? Like there was, you do this or you do, like there was such division.
Yeah, there's not a lot of wiggle room for
in-betweeners. No. And so that, I found that really hard. So again, I was an anti-masker, but I was a different kind. I would not wear my mask. But if I saw someone wearing their mask, so this is where I was going, like where you were saying kindness and grace. If I saw someone wearing a mask in a store, I would stay at least 6, 8, 10 feet back from them. Mm-hmm. And I would just not get into their space, because the thing is, they were at a different place than I was at with it. And so, and then I would be like, if I had to get past them, I'd be like, are you comfortable with me walking past you? And so there's a way to be different, and then there's a way to be an asshole, right? Like,
and it's interesting that that whole thing is interesting, because it's a lot of interesting human behavior that kind of trickle out, because each case that you're in, like, it's dictated by, and it's like you feel I'm of two minds, because like the role of the government is to kind of protect people theoretically, and but they only have these like very broad strokes tools of like how to do things. And like there's usually not much, much room for exceptions or use cases or something like that. So, and then, people react to it totally differently. Right. So it's, I don't know. And for me, it's like, it's like a politeness thing. It almost is what it is. It's just like, okay, that person's, obviously they're inside somewhere, they're wearing they're not super comfortable with what's going on.
And
right?
and why do I want to be a part of adding to that? Why do I want to hurt them further? I don't.
See, I really like your point of view, because I know, like, I have people in my life that I'm really close to that did not get vaccinated.
Yeah.
And it was very hard on them, because not because, they're freaking out about COVID or whatever, but it's about how they were treated. And if they, they're not going out of their way to, cough in people's faces or anything.
Some
like
people
that.
did though, and that made me angry.
Well, it
That
gave-
is
it
not
gave-
okay.
It gave a lot of people that didn't get vaccinated for whatever reason a bad rap,
Yeah.
and it wasn't fair.
And like oh, there we go. Now,
There we go.
I can hear you. And for that, like for things like that, like those are like the exceptions, right? Like those are like those little 5%
Yeah.
outliers in like most people. Chill, don't give a fuck. You wear your mask, great. No,
Yeah.
great. Okay,
Yeah.
whatever. We're all trying to get through this.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then it's like you have like, this guy's spit in this person's face because they're wearing a mask, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, like man, there's dicks everywhere, like.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then on the other side too, it's like, yeah, people are like demonizing people. It's like, oh, you didn't get the fact, blah, blah, you're an awful person. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, and then it's like you get these like fear-driven conversations that are coming up, and it's like, oh yeah, you, and then I think as well too, it's like, we're living in a time where communication styles are. And the power of like these new communication tools like social media and stuff.
Well, it's
are, like,
easy to just blast
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
that you don't even know online.
and then not only that is like it's incentivized for engagement. So it's like it's drawing you in. And then what do people love? People love drama, man. That's why
Yeah.
reality TV does
Yep.
so well. It's
Yeah.
like, oh shit, did you see what they did? Oh,
And I
oh
always-
my god.
the division.
Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah.
So polarized.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's profitable, is what it is, right?
Mhm,
It's
yeah.
See,
like,
and I would rather like people over I would rather
Yeah.
see people come together, find the common ground. Like let's create a new message. Not let's stop with this like whatever, and let's start creating a new message of
yeah.
love one another.
What I
Ugh,
always
but that's so boring. I
don't
want
seem
the
to get-
action. I
But
want that.
aren't we tired of all the other stuff?
Well,
I get tired of
What
it.
I tend to find too is that like
I think most people are.
it's about people's delivery. Like if you look at the two major news outlets in the States, CNN and Fox, their methodology seems to be let's fight fire with even more fire.
Yeah.
And like we'll overpower them with our side of the story, and then Fox will go ahead and do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But if there's like a moderate response, like let's say a third station that was like, okay, maybe you have a little bit, truth to what you're saying, and maybe so do they.
go ahead.
But
I was
there's
going
none
to
of
say
that.
no different than the convoy. If you put yourself in the shoes of the truckers and the people that were participated in the convoy, they felt their story was right. They felt that their glasses that they were wearing were correct. But then if you put yourself in someone that lived in Ottawa downtown up in their apartment building with all these people, like
Trying to get to work. Come on.
they're
man.
right too.
Yeah.
There's
Trying to
nothing
sleep.
wrong with their perspective either. Like they had a right to be like, whoa, like I don't like this, I don't want this in my city, and things like that. They're both right, and that's the thing. They can be so opposite and yet both be right.
I think it falls a lot on leadership, how they respond. Like with Trudeau, and then he enacts the Emergency Act. It's like, so that seems a little it might be a bit of an overreaction, but
Yeah.
I have his constituent's office phone number in my phone, and I phoned his office daily almost during that time. And I
Nice.
said, stop the division.
Yeah.
Just stop the division. You
Yeah.
are a leader, and you can stop this division.
yeah, I get it. And like I had NDP call me yesterday or the day before, just one of the telemarketers being like, can we get your, and I was like, look, like I'm gonna vote Conservative, but like I'd like to talk to whoever your boss is,
Yeah.
because so they can tell whoever their boss is that putting attack ads on everyone, it doesn't help.
No.
And I don't want to see that, and then I don't want to get a call from you saying, can we have a pat on the back? No, you can't.
It's the division again in our politics. So when it came to, and it's left versus right, and so when it came to again back to the convoy thing, seeing that, I wept. Actually, I cried. It made me cry seeing that debate, quote unquote debate, in Parliament. You had you had the Conservatives stand up and make some reasonable points, right? Valid points. Then you had Trudeau stand up, not acknowledge anything that the Conservatives said his own spiel. And what was equally wrong is the Conservatives then screamed at him and yelled at him. And I thought, these are the leaders of our country. We're in a time of like great divide here. And this is who we have leading us. This is insanity. This is not okay. I cried. I cried.
The reason why I'm laughing is, for me, I laugh because if you don't laugh, you're going to cry.
Yeah.
I just think he's hilarious during question period like that, like where it's just like, because there's been quite a few clips, right, where it's like the person asks him and it's like the honorable prime minister or whatever, can you ask this, and then he gives like an answer to something totally.
It's off a piece of paper. There is no like how can we get our government to just be like individuals like working together as a team on the betterment of all of us, left and right? Like
they're too media trained. Like
it makes me sad.
I think it was Pierre Poilievre who was grilling Justin Trudeau a couple of years ago over that weed charity scandal. Mm-hmm. And he was like, how much did your family get? And he's like, well, my wife and my mother have they've done a ton of work for the government and these charities. It's like, how dollar figure. Yeah. And he just kept
one word answer. Yeah. I think it's two things. One, this is my personal take. So no idea if this is right or wrong.
Hey, it's your glasses.
Yeah. I think unfortunately the medium where most politicians get their information or pressure to make decisions on is unfortunately Twitter and special party interest. And so you have these two people.
For a girl that's not like tech savvy, what's special party interest?
So it would be like an advocacy group or a lobby or a lobbyist or someone like that. So it's someone who's like, it's like their goal. And there's lots of like good, an example would be like a good example would be like YYC growers, for example, is like so I don't really know too much about them, but they're organization who has like a certain following, right? Mm-hmm. And if they were to go to the government or like some representative, they would pay attention because like, oh, theoretically there's 10 to 20,000 people who follow them. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so that one person is advocating for this many people.
Yes.
Right. So that's kind of a special party interest. And then there's lots of those, right?
So it's like the lobbyists who go to the government.
Yeah. And those are both like paid. There's like paid. I don't really understand the lobby system in Canada that well, but theoretically there's people who are paid to do that, but also people who volunteer to do that, right? Mm-hmm. So there's many different of those. So that's like a big group, right? Mm-hmm. And it's their job, that person, it's like for the person who leads like I'm just using that for an example, right? It's like it's their job to look at what the government's doing and then say or ask for something that's going to help the members of that group, right?
So I'm part of that. So when the carbon tax came out, actually back to NDP, when Ms. Notley put the carbon tax out for however long that was, we phoned her office. Like I was on the AGGA board, Alberta Greenhouse Growers Association board.
So that's like a special.
Yes, so we fought as a group. And we got an exemption. We got an 80% exemption on the carbon tax. I personally, because this is who I am, I'm tenacious is my middle name. I phoned her office every day for 6 weeks and left a message on her answering machine. Yeah. She probably knows who I am.
Yeah. So if we take that position of like the decision maker, the two things that are informing them, right, are I guess like theoretically, and this would depend on the decision maker, their friends, family, right, and then your special interest group, so the people who are calling every day being like, okay, this doesn't work, change this or change that, make a decision on this, like, oh, could we get this, like we need those people, and that's for a wide variety of different things, right? And then Twitter. Yeah. And then Twitter has the most people, right, theoretically, so it's like you see all the little retweets, but that's incredibly misleading at the same time, right? And it's it's kind of the loudest and the most public facing. So it's like, so if you're a decision maker, your kind of your incentive is to get reelected for the next time around, right?
Yes.
And to please as many of your voters so that you get re-voted in.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, like, well, who am I incentivized to please? Twitter. And it's like, Twitter is like not who you want to be talking to when you're making these decisions. You want to be talking to the people who are affected by these decisions.
It's no different than, and I guess that goes against of what I just said about not being vaccinated. I mean, the healthcare professionals know, right? And so the farmers know, whatever knows like that. I don't know, that kind of falls in that line too. Like,
Yeah.
know your farmer.
Yeah, exactly. And they're kind of like, they're resource constrained a little bit, or time constrained to make a decision at, like, they have up until some point, some meeting somewhere where they're going to have to make a decision, support something, not support something.
Yeah.
And so, but I think it's like, it's unfortunate that, and this is what I think we should get a politician on to really, to tell them, like, who, because, like, obviously they're going to say, oh, it's like my constituents, right? Like, that's who I care about. Like, but it's like, where are the actual pressures coming from? And I think personally that they would be special interests, like these groups, because they're the ones wanting to getting in there, and then Twitter, and that's the one that's going to have, in terms of publicity, the most impact, right?
Because of public opinion.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
well, and the loudest one, like, I mean, look at what the convoy did, right? The loudest one, you got to get loud, and when you're loud, then you turn some heads.
Yeah, and that exactly.
The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, exactly. So that's I don't know. It'd be interesting to have someone like who's kind of in that position and ask
Danielle
him where
Smith.
ask him where the
I've met her.
pressures. Yeah,
You met her.
Yeah.
My mom is a huge fan of hers.
I met her last summer.
Nice. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs medium. No comment. All right. yeah. I hear you. Yeah, but it's interesting.
I'll tell you later.
It's fair enough. It's interesting because I think that's like one of the main thing that leads to apathy, especially in young people, is it's like, yeah, it's so complicated, and then rarely do you get a decision or a consensus that's made, and it's like, it's just all bullshit. And so it's like, because it's like super complicated. And then I laugh at the there's like a cartoon from the 60s, and it's like how bills passed. It's like a cartoon. It's like, I'm just a bill. And it's like a little musical about like how I go to the Congress, and this is US based, and US system is much different, I think much more extreme than Canada's. Because I think, like, I was reading this kind of like article on like what makes Canadian, like, because Canadians and Americans influence each other super heavily, right? So, and it's like, okay, but why are Canadians, why is Canada a thing and America a thing, and why isn't just America? And then one of the theories is that Canadians are a fan of order, because so all of the Canadians, when the American Revolution comes, they're all, like, the history is they're loyalists, right? So it's like all the fans of the British government, and then so that's the idea where it's like Canadians have and always, maybe not always will, but always have in the future, and so like you could, and so that's a couple hundred years ago, but also in the grand scheme of humans, like that's not that long ago. So you get some of these values of like, oh yeah, I like order, like theoretically, I mostly like order. I like things when yesterday is relatively the same as tomorrow, or like tomorrow is relatively the same as today. And so for most of Canada's history, it's not as volatile as America's political system, where it's like, one, we have more than two parties, right? So you get a balancing out kind of, and two, like there's a propensity to like, all right, like we're here, we want to chill kind of. We don't want things to be like super dramatically different than tomorrow. So so anyways, that's my riff on why I think like, so politicians are really, really consider Twitter a lot, but I think that's unfortunate because you get like these, obviously the loudest voice is the winner in that forum, and that's rarely speaking for the large majority of people.
Well, and the other thing with politicians too is they're there for their job, so they want to be reelected again, and it doesn't necessarily make them the best in decision making. Like they might not be the best at, like for healthcare, like we should have a nurse in charge of healthcare, and we should have a farmer in charge of like agriculture. We should have like, politicians are there to do. Does that make sense? They're there to do that job, but they're not trained in.
Yeah, and I think
economics should be a small business owner, honestly.
Yeah. I agree with you, but I also think they're living in a legacy system that also hasn't shifted towards how people communicate now today. Yep. So like you see, like we were talking about, like, I think the reason why, you have like Trudeau, like, because he's been media trained, and the media he's been trained for is like in Canada, CBC, like CTV, like he's trained for that, right? He's not trained to like come on and talk for 3 hours about like what he does, right? Like,
which would be huge.
would be
imagine
cool.
if he met with the like he never met with the leader of the convoy, did he?
No,
I don't know.
no.
And if they had a public conversation for like for a 5-hour podcast.
See, and
why wouldn't you like?
Why wouldn't you want to sit in a room and just have a
offer.
conversation, right?
Literally.
That's the thing. Like when you're in a fight with someone, you need to be able to communicate and talk it out. Like that's how you solve things, you know?
There's this one congressperson who I follow on Instagram who's like, he's been utilizing, and I remember, I think one of the first times I saw you, we talked about Instagram stories, I think, and the utilizing Instagram stories to market your product or something like that. And this guy has been, I really like him because that's what he uses Instagram for. It's like, oh, there was a big thing that happened. Like the Silicon Valley Bank thing was a big thing in the news, right? And he, on his Instagram story, is like, okay, this is what happened. We had a impromptu Zoom meeting with almost all of Congress there. That usually doesn't happen, but
I read that. Yeah, I saw that one.
And he says it right on his Instagram story, right? So it's like direct to consumer, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, boom. It's like, oh, okay. Like I'm glad that person took the time to inform me. Theoretically, I'm his constituent, but also it's way broader than that. Like I'm just some dude in Calgary, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, this guy, I don't even know what constitution he represents, right? But it's like, oh, that's good to know that like my leader is like prioritizing telling the public what's happening.
Yeah.
Because it's like you have a lot of decision power. Like that's like the whole thing, right? There's like a lot of power in these rooms where big decisions are being made where it's like, oh, shouldn't that person who's in that room prioritize like turning around and telling the people who he's theoretically representing what's going on in there?
Yeah.
And then so I think we'll see, theoretically, I think we'll see more of that.
Transparency.
Hopefully.
I hope so.
Knock wood.
Yeah.
We need more of that.
Well, it's getting harder for people to avoid it too now.
Yeah.
To put things behind closed doors.
Yeah. Well, yeah. People can't sweep things under the rug anymore, and there's a camera everywhere. Everything's recorded.
But that's why I'm sitting here. I mean, other than saying my thought on Danielle Smith, like good or bad, like I'm unbiased at this moment, but like I'm being authentic and open and honest. Like I've told you things that are personal to me. Like we need more of that. We need more people to be more authentic and open and here's who I am, and you know, I can love you
100.
and you can love me.
100%. Yeah, because you want more authenticity in politics, right? Because like,
and honestly, vulnerability too.
Vulnerability. Yep.
Yeah. And being open about it, because it's like, and I think that's hopefully, like, I hope that's how it goes, because, you know, like politics, I like to say politics is a blood sport, right? So it's, you know, it's a lot on the line, a lot of power. Woo, like, you know, people, they get murdered over this shit, right? Like, I don't think that's happened in Canada, but, you know, you look elsewhere, that's happened. And it's what you want as a leader, theoretically, is someone who's honest, like holds the same values roughly as the people that they represent, and is doing their best to put those people's like to bring a version of those people's values into an important decision that's going to be made that's going to affect all those people.
But the problem is too, they're not just, so if you have an NDP leader, or you have a conservative leader, or you have a liberal leader, like, or whoever you voted in, that person is not just representing the few people that voted for them. That person is now representing all of the people in the constituency, the ones that voted for them and the ones that didn't vote for them.
Yes.
And the problem is we're just seeing such a divide that it's like my way or the highway. And so then we see this back and forth, like, you know, conservative, liberal. But most people, I think, like myself included, like I like fiscal responsibility. Know where your money is, budget, you know, like don't spend more than out of your means, like things like that. But I also like the kindness portion too, like social, like take care of others and healthcare and, you know, give people that are less fortunate things like that's really important in society and extremely important. But the problem is those two don't
mix very well.
No. And so you're trying to base your vote on like, I have to choose left or I have to choose right. Like, but why can't we start seeing more?
Yeah. Well, I think the voting system will have to change in order to, like, if you, because like there's been a dramatic shift in how things are being communicated, right? The system in place today was built before the internet.
Yes.
And it's, you know, like, it's crazy that it's still there. Go democracy. That's good. But
we need democracy.
We need democracy. And I think democracy is incredibly important. However, if that system doesn't change, and I think it goes to be showed that it's just going to get gamed and benefit a few people over. Yeah, it can get compromised. And so I think it's important that structure of like how democracies like takes place, it needs to be flexible enough to change with how people communicate so that that you're able to get some sort of, so that it doesn't become so obsolete. And then because if it doesn't change, people are just going to get so pissed off that, you know, because theoretically, like Canada, it's just like, it's loose groups of people who, like, it was like, if you look at the founding of Canada, it's tough to like bring those people together, right? Like at that, or like people like these, well, it was largely groups of white men, right? Who represented or had loose alliances with each other in different parts of Canada. And they came together and it's like, okay, this is how life should go on, right? And then those people met in Ottawa, or I don't know where they ended up meeting, and so it's like, okay, like let's bring this all in one. We have loosely the same values, like let's, you know, we're trying to accomplish the same thing, you know, so let's work together. And that was hard to do. It's hard, and I'm curious, maybe we can switch back to you with the building a village around. And so it's like, it's for a country and a village are not that different, because there's people with lots of differing views.
Yes.
But you have to, there's a lot of diplomacy, and there's a lot of, I guess, like a
coordinated approach.
Yeah, coordination and communication that needs to happen, or else it falls apart.
Exactly.
And I think what all democracies, because their society's largely based on conversation and talking with people.
Yes.
There's a big threat to it right now, because it's like those traditional ways of communicating with people and talking with people are not really representative of how most people communicate now. And so there's like these frictions that are popping up. And
but
so
people crave relationship.
Yeah.
So this is not relationship.
Yeah.
So me sitting here today is a totally different conversation than if we were doing this over Zoom.
Yeah.
Or if we were messaging or texting, right? And so with my farm, with doing what I do, selling direct to the customer, I absolutely love my customers, because I have customers from the left to the right, from, you know, religious, non-religious, like all different walks of life. And we've all come together with the common thing of tomatoes, right? Yeah. And so food, exactly. And so how we approach that is, you know, and everyone's little different story and everyone's different little reason is still, but it comes down to the tomato. And we don't all have to, without each other, like without farmers, without, you know, my team behind me, the people that plant it and pick the weeds, and, you know, without them, we don't have food. Without the customer, we don't have food. We have to work together. We have to figure out on how to work together. And so that's where that team approach is, you know, like I'm not perfect, you know, I've got people from we're all different. And yet, you know, finding that common thread, finding that common ground, you know, they don't have to buy from me. That's the democratic part too. They don't have to choose to spend their dollars in my booth, right? Yeah. That's not, you go to Walmart if you want to, you know, like, but it's the relationship. It's, you know, it's the relationship. Yeah. The relationship is so important to me.
100%. One of the things, so we talked about, you know,
we've talked about lots of things.
We're getting big. Yeah. But if we shift that back to it, so what did you find? So when I would imagine that's taken like many years to build. That community of people that supports you, right? Yes. What are some things that you found? Like, I guess if you were to go back at the beginning, 2008, just as you're building, as the greenhouse is getting going. What would you tell that Dawn? And keeping it like, let's imagine this Dawn is very open to learning from older Dawn, because I know for me, my younger self, if I went back, he'd be like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, shut up. Like,
I feel that too.
Yeah.
Who I am now is not who I was 10 years ago.
Yeah. So what are some things, I guess, you've learned along this journey that would have been helpful to you when you started that journey?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
It's been tough.
Yeah.
It's been really tough.
You wouldn't do farming at all?
I wouldn't build a greenhouse again.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it and I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But if I said this to the insurance guy the other day, I'm like, if I get my miracle and my farm gets leveled by a tornado, hopefully everyone's off the farm, but like if I get, a tornado that levels the farm, I probably wouldn't do it again because it's that fucking hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you do instead if you had a blank slate?
That's tricky though, because I almost had a blank slate. So you texted me now and you said, did you sell the farm? And I said I didn't. And that's the reason I didn't sell my farm, is because I'm a single woman, 42 years old. We already talked about it. I graduated high school, but barely. I have no education. I haven't had a job in
no formal education.
But
yeah.
I mean, honestly,
You're
like
probably the most knowledgeable person I've ever met about vegetables, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, but no formal education. No, I've not worked for somebody for 20 years. I'd make the worst employee and the best employee all wrapped up in one. And so where would I go for a job? Like how would I support my 3 children? And so
Starting over is not easy.
No, and so I was given a big offer on my farm and I turned it down because I need to do what I got to do
now
for my family.
Yeah.
And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
What is the best part about it and what's the worst part about it?
The best part is my customers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And the worst part is sometimes the finances.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you say you have you said it was a small, but that's 36,000 acres, right?
No,
Square feet.
Square feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would a big
greenhouse
competitor
be? 40 acres.
40 acres.
So I'm shy of 1 acre, and the biggest greenhouse in the province, I think, is probably pushing 40 acres.
What does that look like, 40 acres? I'm trying to scale that in my
my
head.
entire farm right now is 43 acres.
Okay.
So it would be like
the whole property.
The whole property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of a way of how many square feet is a football? I'm awful at mental math, so I didn't get that.
Luckily for us, I'm terrible too.
Yeah. I was gonna say like how big is a football field, but it'd be many football fields.
We should Google like what size a mall is. How many square feet is a mall?
Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I was really excited. Have you seen ChatGPT 3? That's like this.
I'm a few years older than you, so you might
He's
have
our
to
little
explain it to
AI
me.
buddy.
Yeah, it's
Here, what was the question?
It's like a super assistant kind of thing. You type in anything and it will give you a response kind of thing.
Oh.
So if you want to, like, it would know this answer.
Okay.
How many
square feet is like Cross Iron Mills Mall or Chinook Mall or something like that?
Let's see. Cross Iron Mills is 1.4 million square feet, 674 acres. So it would be.
It's not 600 square. It's 600 acres.
674 acres is what it says. I would imagine that includes the parking lot.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, because it's, so I don't know what the inside.
I don't know either.
Let's see.
Yeah. That would make sense.
Is a football field.
Yeah, because I'm trying to, I remember
Okay, so a football field is 1.3 acres, 57,600 square feet. So yours is about just over half a football field, and then it would be about roughly like 35, 40 football fields for the biggest greenhouse.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So that's a
where do you know where that is? The biggest one?
Medicine Hat.
Med Hat, yeah.
Yeah. And it's our greenhouse industry in Alberta is a really good industry. Like
Yeah.
we've got some really good people in our industry.
Question for you: if let's say like some apocalypse happened and it was just Alberta, like let's say it happens tomorrow, could what's grown in Alberta feed everyone in Alberta?
No.
Okay.
No.
What percent?
Unless we got creative on grain, you'd have to eat a lot of you'd have to buy the wheat and grind it up in your blender and make your own bread.
Oh, okay.
We might be able to feed ourselves like that, but no,
Yeah.
we import so much. If you look at a grocery store, especially in the wintertime,
Mhm.
we look at the imports, and even in the summertime, we import so many fruits and vegetables, and that's
Yeah.
the thing with our global system. And that's the other thing too.
It's designed to do that.
It is.
Yeah.
And so we bring in tomatoes from Mexico where they get paid $15 a day, and I'm competing with $15 an hour here, which I mean, I'm happy to, but I'm competing with that. So when you say, well, your tomatoes are expensive, well, I'm actually paying people a fair wage. Like slavery in our world is real. Like, I'm not paying them $15 a day down in Mexico, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, this is more or less unrelated, but those like cobalt mines.
Oh yeah.
You get paid like a nickel a day or something, and they're like,
well, they're supposed to have no humans in them.
Yeah, my cousin he said something funny. He's like, the bottom of the supply chain's not a very nice place to look at.
No.
Yeah.
Look at our clothes. Our clothes are some of the worst, right?
Oh yeah.
And so people think that slavery is not real, that we don't have slavery in our world, but we really honestly do. It's just not in our backyard.
I laugh because like there's like and this it's no one person or organization's fault for the world as it is right now. Because I laugh. There's like a lot. That's a big thing that kind of goes around. It's like, oh, there's like 100 companies that are responsible for all of the carbon footprint or whatever. And it's like, sure, that might be true, but what are they serving? They're serving demand, right? That's everyone else, right? Like and it's like, sure, it might not be you, but it's like it's on aggregate the human species, and it's like, yeah, that sucks, and there's lots of things but it's like it's not so cut and dry where it's like, oh fuck, it's big industry and all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, sure, there's like a lot that goes wrong there, but it's like it's not as simple as like, yeah, it's all their problem and I'm not culpable for any of this bad stuff that's happening. It's like, well, it's like we all are. It's a collective thing, but it's like there are small things that you can do, and one of the big things is education, and where it's like, oh, like once like, oh, me doing this is contributing to this, and I can make a small change in my life today where it's like it's going to make it's going to make a small impact. But if you do if you share that knowledge with other people, then it's going to have a much larger impact.
And I think young people are seeing that more and more and more.
Yeah.
They're doing things, for the greater, I mean, my daughter, she's like, Mom, I want to shop. She's 16. Mom, I want to shop at a thrift store. I don't want to be part of this bigger consumerism, blah, blah, blah. I want to shop at the thrift store. And I think, good on you, girl.
Yeah. And I think too is like, I think it's media literacy as well too, is like, I think, like conversations like these are important to have. And I think people are reading through the bullshit a lot. I think younger people, I guess I'm a younger person, but other younger people are younger than me. I don't know. It's tricky. That's why that's why I'm bullish volatility in the short term. Cause it's like, one, there's a lot of information is freer than it's ever been before.
It's also very valuable.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a good thing. Like, I think people should take it all in like that. Yeah. Like, I've been called a conspiracy theorist, but I'm like, no, I take it all in, right from the left to the right. I take it all in, and I actually go, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just going to do the best I can with what I've got.
Make an assessment on all
the
information.
Yeah. And do my best. But I take it all in. I don't not hear other points.
Yeah.
And that's what we need, is we need to be able to take it all in.
To your point, I have some people in my life that I'm really close with that are they'd say they're conspiracy theorists. They have a different term for it, but I mean, it's important. Like, I'm pretty moderate in terms of my political and spiritual beliefs, like pretty dead center. But it's important to take all sides in, and then you can make your own opinion. Because if you're not educated on one side of the argument, then how are you going to make an objective choice?
Absolutely. My favorite people, my absolute favorite people in my life are the ones that are so different than me. And so one of my best friends, she's extremely different from me. And we will have, I've got several friends like that actually. And we will have these conversations, and they have even said, Dawn, we want to hear what your thoughts are on things, because we know it's out there, but like, we want to hear it from your perspective because you're not crazy. And so, and then to just be able to have that dialogue. And then I want to hear their perspective because they tone me down, and that's how we sharpen each other. That's how we learn from each other, is right. Like I don't have the answers. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm wrong, but like, that's how we learn is by talking to one another and building those back to the bridges, right? Building the bridges.
100%. Yeah. And it's like grace and respect thing as well too, right? It's like, okay, it's like for the other person, it's like, okay, yeah, I don't really believe what you're saying, or interesting point, but it's like, okay, like
at least we live in a place where we can.
Yeah, I care enough
disagree.
to sit. I respect you enough to sit here and listen to what you're going to say to me, because there's probably a kernel of something in there, right? And it's like, okay, yeah, I didn't think about that before. It's like you can't just be like, okay, I don't. Yeah, zone out, like whatever.
Well, and I personally want to always be growing and learning and getting better. Like
lifelong learner. That's where it's at.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if you just stay in one place, like that's
boring, snooze fest.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, were you gonna say something?
Nope.
This has gone like way far from farming and more into like politics and life and.
Like I said,
I love it.
There's lots that differentiate us, but there's a lot more that brings people together.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Food is one of those things that brings
food
people
is
together.
Probably a massive
some favorite dishes that you like to make with
salad.
Salad.
My version of Greek salad. So I take a head of lettuce and I cut it up, and I put some feta cheese in there.
Ooh.
And then I put some tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, and I toss it up with some flavored olive oil that I get from a little shop in Airdrie, and toss it up, and that
sounds absolutely
delicious.
That's my meal. And good veggies make good food, right?
Yeah.
I have a tough time in restaurants sometimes eating salad because it's gross, because the veggies don't taste good.
They're not fresh.
This is how ballsy I am. I've even gone into a restaurant before, brought my own tomatoes, and said, I would like this salad, and I want you to use these tomatoes, please.
Yeah. I find that the restaurants that thrived or are thriving are ones that are using
local.
Local.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I like Earl's a lot.
Yeah. I haven't been to Earl's in a long time.
Very local.
But I went to another big Earl's is, I think, Western Canadian. So.
Yeah, it's like BC and Alberta.
Yeah. I went to another big chain restaurant, Canadian big chain restaurant. No, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to name it, but one of the things I experienced when going out, my girlfriend has quite a long list of dietary restrictions. Mm-hmm. So that makes we often don't go out, because what we end up getting for her is often we can make it twice as good for half the price at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like really doesn't make sense. The only reason we go out really is for the social component of like going, because like you said, food brings people together, and it's nice to eat with people.
Yes.
But
and it's convenient to not cook at home sometimes
and that as well too, right?
Yeah.
We went to this one restaurant, and so we don't order. So it's usually for her. It's like meat and a vegetable, or a variety of vegetables, and maybe potatoes. Those are the things that she can have, right?
Yeah.
And you see like the veggies that come out, and it's like an asparagus and what's like the white asparagus thing? Okay, maybe I'm
asparagus thing.
Yeah. There is white asparagus.
Oh, okay, it could be that. Yeah, or there's yellow asparagus as well too. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, it was that and then just like yellow pepper, and that was it. And it was like, you know, when you pick it up and you can tell it's like not fresh. Like it's like there's a give to it.
Yeah.
That you don't get from a fresh asparagus, right? Yeah. And then you immediately taste it, right?
Yeah.
Because like with it, you get do you know what it is that is like that makes it like like a fresh vegetable like turgid and then how it decays over time?
Well, you lose your nutrients for sure, but like the only time I like to eat asparagus is in May and June in Alberta. Like other than
Really?
that, asparagus should not be eaten in Alberta.
Oh wow.
Like corn should only be eaten in August, September in Alberta, and then you just don't eat corn. Like you eat your fill in those, like that's eating seasonally, right? And so in the wintertime, like so when you eat seasonally, like and you asked me earlier on about the carrots, right? And so why are Alberta carrots sweet? It's because we get those cold nights, the sugars get put into the carrot, and so that drives the sugar content up. And so that's why when you get carrots from Mexico or California or whatever, they just don't have those cold nights, which means their sugar content is lower, right?
Is corn grown in Alberta?
Yeah, Tabor. I grow a little bit of corn, but the further south you get, the more warm, frost-free days.
Higher yield you're going to
Yeah,
get.
yeah. So warmer nights. So I'm cooler up where, but my corn is sweeter than Tabor corn
Because it's colder nights.
because it's colder
Do you
nights.
guys do any fruit at all?
I don't.
Have
No.
you guys seen the yellow watermelon?
No. What's that?
Yellow watermelon. I just had it the other day. It's really good.
Nice.
What's a...
It's
What is
just-
yellow? Did they?
It's
how
just
do
a
they make it
watermelon.
yellow?
I have
And
no
it's
idea.
yellow.
My aunt told me about it.
inside's
and then
yellow?
The inside is
Mhm.
yellow.
Interesting.
It's delicious.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Nice.
I wanted to ask you kind of along those lines. So if one wanted to eat seasonally in Calgary, what are they eating each season? What are they looking to put on their plate each season?
So
Just kind of like a rough rule of thumb for people.
right now, anything greenhouse. So if you've had so lettuce, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, we're starting to get into the greenhouse seasons. So we'll have that stuff.
So that's kind of so that's kind of spring. Or
Yeah. March, April, May. Yeah,
Okay,
we've got that available. I grow a little kale and spinach and things like that in my greenhouse just because
People
I
love kale
like
and
the
spinach.
variety.
Yeah.
And then when you get into summer, you have first you start with your asparagus and your radishes and things like that, and then you get into your summer. You eventually get your potatoes, carrots, onions, beets, all your greens and things like that. Corn is the fall. Squash is the fall, and then when you come into December, October, November, December, after we've had the frost, lots of frost in the garden, then you get into your storage items, which is potatoes, carrots, onions, beets, Brussels sprouts.
Broccoli?
No, that's a summer crop.
That's summer crop.
Yeah. So
If
you were to eat seasonally, that's what you would eat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And your body actually craves that. So when you come into spring and summer, you're going to want more of the salads and lighter things and, that kind of thing. And then when you come into winter, naturally, you're going to want more of those storage items because they're higher, like potatoes and carrots and, they're higher sugar or like starch and sugar content, right? And so then
ready
you...
for hibernation mode.
Exactly. And so that's what that's what your
crave.
body craves in the wintertime.
For someone, my brother, John, has a garden
Yes.
in my backyard.
Yeah.
Started. And it's very small and maybe about the size of this. I don't know. Hard to say. But what would you recommend if you're in the city, you're only doing it for the spring, summer, then you harvest in the fall? Are there any vegetables you'd recommend?
Yeah, so I would do your lettuces, your spinaches. Those are your cold weather crops. Kale. You want to do your greens. You can rotate them. You can do a couple crops in a year, and they're easy. And then I would do beans, peas, some carrots because that's fun. I would throw some tomatoes on your back patio because that's really fun. Planter pots and things like that. Cucumbers are really tough. Your broccoli, cauliflower, they're called I just lost the word.
Not easy to grow plants.
They're not easy to grow, but there is a word. It's the
Not as
same.
hardy.
It's the same family as canola. They are, and it's off the top of my tongue. So, anyways, they're harder to grow because you need because of the butterflies. So cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, those kinds of things are tricky.
Like butterflies eat them?
Yeah, so the butterflies land, they put the worms in there, and then you got wormy stuff. So you either cover it with netting or you spray it. Okay. So cucumbers are really hard because they're really picky about their water. Yeah. Peppers are just a long season crop, so Again, I mean, have them for fun, but don't think that you're going to get like
Yeah.
lots of peppers. You're going to have a whole pepper plant and maybe get one pepper,
Yeah,
right?
So besides yourself, if just anecdotally, I know a lot of people in apartments, right? So if someone wanted to live vicariously through someone else's Instagram, who would they follow in Alberta?
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Oh,
That
okay.
was my mechanic.
Oh, okay.
But I
okay.
ignored it.
Yeah.
It's still going.
Okay.
Can I just answer it real
Yes.
quick?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. 100%.
No, he just stopped. So
Okay.
okay.
My-
Sorry.
my
If
question
someone
was-
wanted to, let's start over.
Someone's living in an apartment in Calgary, and they want to
old
live
deck
either.
situation?
They want to learn either two, three things, I guess. One, they want to learn more about gardening, or like maybe want to go to do a workshop or something like that. So they maybe they don't have a property now, but they want to have one in the future, and they want to garden. Where or two, like they just want to live vicariously of someone who's a good gardener and has a really nice garden Instagram.
Yeah.
Who are some people that come to your mind who?
Well, I would
be
want
good
to say me,
follow?
but I'm really terrible at that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just any farm, any small local farm. That would be a good one. Like just Google local farmers in my area, and and then you can maybe visit them. Like Alberta Open Farm Days is really good. So Alberta puts on
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go
Alberta Open Farm Days, and so a whole bunch of farmers open their farms, and then you can come for the tour. And I give people the tour, and I'm like, okay, that corner looks really bad, but here we're farming, like.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not Instagram
not
pretty.
No,
every
it's
day.
not. It's
Yeah.
reality. Like this is reality. And so, yeah, Alberta Open Farm Days is a really nice time to go to farms and learn about things. There's different farms in our area, especially north of Calgary, that are open to the public. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Nice.
And I think if you're into it, if you throw some tomatoes on your back porch, or a pot of lettuce, do whatever works for you. So if you live in an apartment building,
Yep.
you have a little patio.
Yep.
Which way does it face?
It faces north.
Okay, so
gets
you're gonna
lots of
want
sun.
north.
Yeah. It faces.
If it's north, it's not gonna get lots of sun.
Oh, okay. It seems like it's lost. Our walls are white, so it seems bright in there. But
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's not.
Yeah,
as bright
so
as the
if
other.
it's south, you're going to get like full sun and it's going to be screaming hot. But if it's north, you're going to get that shade, like it's the daylight, but you're not going to get the full
okay.
sun.
Yep.
So I would plant cool weather things in there. So, put a planter together and put lettuce and kale and spinach. Yeah, put those, even those three things in a planter, right? That would fit on your patio, and then just cut it off and eat it, and let it grow again or replant it.
Yeah.
I mean, do what works for you in your
Situation.
situation, and then let a farmer like me, like back to the peppers, like let me do your peppers for you because they're tough. Let me do the cucumbers because they're tough, and then you do
what you can.
Yeah.
And yeah.
work with your farmer. I think everybody should be growing something.
Yeah.
It's really sad when a kid comes and they think that a carrot is grown in a grocery store, or bought from a grocery store. The best carrot you ever had is the one where you pick it out of the dirt and you wipe the dirt off and
We
you eat half the
it
dirt.
is.
Yeah.
we have a raspberry bush at our house that is struggling, but I mean she's still alive.
Yeah.
Blooms a little bit every year.
Yeah.
But it's cool and it's an intimate experience. When it's
And
like,
that
I earned
raspberry
this.
is going to be the best one you've ever ate.
Straight up, like
Yeah.
yeah.
I tell people that all the time. I'm like, my tomatoes are really good, but the ones that you grow in your backyard are going to be better.
Yeah.
Except that one customer says that
My,
her kids will only eat my tomatoes and not even her tomatoes. So
Yeah. No, but
My-
I'm kind of a big deal.
sounds cocky.
Yeah. You were gonna say something.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to like my grandma. She had a garden, and it was just luscious and just so green and thick and really cool. And she had the tomato plant right at the very front of the garden.
Yeah.
And it was for pizza and for spaghetti and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She'd make her tomato sauce and So
Nice. Yeah, that's the best carrot I ever had. I really do like the Innisfil Growers
Yep.
one that you
Yeah.
can.
Beck Farms.
Yeah, the Beck Farms ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are really tasty.
Yeah.
But the best carrot.
Good
I ever
farmers.
Had, yeah, the best carrot I ever had was from my grandma's garden as well too.
Yeah.
We'd go and as little kids pick them and then get the potatoes as well too. And
yeah.
Yeah.
It also makes me very kind of sad because remember, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Godfather, but at the very end, he's walking around in his tomato garden. Little kids there, they pick their tomato. It's bittersweet, but I do
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Spoiler alert: he dies of a heart attack.
Yeah.
The one character.
But that
There
movie's
you
also
go.
been out for like 60 years.
yeah. If you haven't seen it by now, it's your fault.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess we're in March, right?
Yes.
Mid March kind of
Yeah.
thing. St. Patty's Day tomorrow.
Yeah.
What does your operation look like now this month, and what's it going to look like once you get into the summer months? You mentioned so. What did you say your busy season really is?
June, July, August, September till Thanksgiving.
Okay.
I'm flat out. Like I put in 35 to 40 hours in 3 days.
Oh.
And then I still have the other 4 days that I'm still working. Like I'm flat out. It looks different this year because I did, for the first time in 17 years, I shut the greenhouse down in November. So late November, I drained all my boiler system, I drained all my pipes, and I shut it down. And so I went from an $8,000 natural gas bill in November to, I think the next month was $1,200 because I'm just heating a little portion. Jury's out, I'll know more in September, but I think that was the best decision I ever could have made, is to not have that big, huge natural gas bill over the winter here.
Yeah.
And so normally I get my plants in January. This year I bumped it by 7 weeks. So I just got my plants last week. And so I'm predicting, because I've not done it this way. So we've got longer daylight hours now. I'm predicting that I will have cucumbers probably next week or the week after, mini cukes and the big cukes, and then it'll follow from there. So, I'm tomatoes end of April.
Okay.
I've had them mid-March before, but I think it's looking more like end of April.
Yeah. Okay.
And then peppers in May.
Yeah. And then, so what does your day-to-day look like for you? Because you've mentioned that you've been, so are you still there, like you're doing daily chores and stuff every single day, or you're more out there marketing now and kind of talking with people at farmers markets?
I've had time off this winter, and I've really enjoyed it. So
Congratulations.
Awesome.
I've not done that before. Workaholism was always my coping mechanism, and for the first time in many, many years, I haven't used it as my coping mechanism this winter. And
Also, congratulations with that.
thank you. Yeah, it's been really,
we're
really
all about healthy,
exactly
healthy habits.
So I joined a gym, so that's been good.
That's awesome.
So in the summer, I have to push. Like I have 4, 5, 6 months. It'll start in May, and then it'll quit, by November 1st. I have that many months to make all of my money for the entire year. And so I have to pay off last winter's debts, climb out of the hole just to be able to go back in the hole again next winter. So now it's kind of not as much. I did put in a 18-hour day, I think, the other day, just trying to get my boilers and stuff going. But in the summertime, that's when it's go time. So I'm up in the morning. I'm doing deliveries. Normally, I'll do a delivery. I'm the face. Like I like to do the front end of it.
Yeah, interactions with customers. Yeah,
exactly. So I'll do a delivery, and then I'll head to a market. And so I'm out the door by 8, and I'm back in the door by 10. It's usually my day in the summer is usually a best case an 8-hour day, worst case a 15-hour day. It's kind of crazy. Right now I'm in the middle of lambing, or just going to start lambing, and so.
How many lambs are you expecting?
I've got probably about 23 pregnant ewes, so.
How many, is it sheep or goats? It's sheep, right? Yeah.
Yes.
How many do you have in total there?
Well, I've got 23 or 24 or 25. I just got some new ones. Don't hold me to the number, but I've got a bunch of pregnant women in my backyard, and so they'll start lambing out here, and so they'll have anywhere from 1 to 3 babies.
Oh, really?
In a shot, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't realize that twins and triplets were common.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially I forget the breed. That is mine are all Heinz 57. They're all mix of all different breeds, but one of the father has a breed that gives off lots of babies.
Yeah, when you said Heinz 57, I was like, oh, nice, a specific type of breed. But no,
that's like a mix.
Yeah, that's a catch up. Heinz, it's got a bunch of different flavor Heinz.
So
Okay.
I don't know what to say. It might be politically incorrect. So
No,
please
no, I
hold me
don't
to that.
think so. I don't think
Well,
so.
you never know where these days what's politically correct and not politically correct.
Yeah, it changes
so.
on the daily. So
A lot
yeah.
of hypersensitive.
Just be you, and it's fine.
Well,
yeah.
Please forgive me if I offended you, because that is not my intention is to offend anybody.
Yeah. If anyone gets offended, just find Dawn, talk to her in person. You'll end up crying and hugging it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't try and solve your arguments with people on the internet. It never goes well. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. In person's always the best.
No.
Okay, so you're lambing, you got that going on. Things are is this time of period kind of like it's starting to ramp up?
It's starting to ramp up, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So just going and fixing and lambing and pruning and
Yeah.
My guys are all starting to come in. In April, we'll start with dirt work in the field.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we can till without as soon as the frost is out of the ground and it's dry enough that we can till, but hopefully we get some good runoff this year.
Yeah.
Because it was so dry, we need, but
so for where you are, so you're Didsbury, pretty much you're on the other side of the town of the highway. Where does the runoff come from you guys? I guess that doesn't really come from the mountains or anything like that. It's just snow melt. It's
and then it goes into the ditches and the ditches into the low spots and the low spots into I've got a seasonal creek that runs along the west side of my property. So
okay.
Yeah. And then that eventually dumps into my dugout and runoff. All the farmers need we need moisture to get into the ground. So I'm really hoping we have a really fast warm up here so that the ground thaws and it just goes right in.
What is that a big issue in Alberta? The Chinooks what does that do to the land? Because you get you'll get it where it will all melt off and then 2 weeks later it's going to be under snow and frozen again, right?
Yeah. So again, if your ground is frozen, it doesn't go into the ground. Your ground is frozen and it doesn't get in. And so we need the moisture to get into the ground. We need that water table.
How many days usually does it take of above zero? Does it have to?
I don't know. It depends on the year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I can remember years where parts of my road, because the water kind of follows low spots, and I can see where the water flows from different neighbor to different neighbor. I can remember points where some of the driveways were covered with water and the road was kind of washing out a bit. Yeah. And then to the last 2 years where we've had no runoff, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the best predictor of runoff, or it's
snow load, snowpack?
Load. Okay.
Yeah. So if your ditches are full, that's my electrician now. So I'll phone him back later.
Fair. Yeah. So if the ditches are full of snow, it's usually a good sign that you're gonna get.
Can you hear that?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah. No. So if the ditches are full of snow, then you're gonna have the runoff, and it'll fill the dugouts, and you need good dugouts. I have a neighbor friend, his dugout, he had his cows in his pasture, and it was on that drought year, and the dugout got so low that this special kind of algae started growing, and his cows drank the water, and then they got really toxic, and he actually lost, I don't even know how many cows. That's devastating, right?
Yeah.
Because and it went so quick too. He had one cow down, and next thing you know, he had bunch more down, and
jeez,
that's expensive.
That's why I'm for the creative insurer out there. That's why I'm surprised that there's not an insurance because I feel like there's also more people who are, well, correct me if I'm wrong, more smaller growers have it, because a big book that I read that got me interested in reaching out to you was it was by. Oh man, it's called The Omnivore's Dilemma. I can't remember what the guy's name. He's some journalist, and he did in the book he kind of does a take on. He looks at conventional farming, organic farming, and then a beyond organic farming.
Yeah.
And then a big guy he interviews is Joe Salatin.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've met him.
Yeah, I would imagine he's a big deal in the farming community.
Yeah. In certain farming communities.
Yeah.
In more of my type of farming community.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's kind of a hippie farmer.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of the the face of Beyond Organic a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other people in there, but that's who this guy interviews
Yes.
in this. And I would imagine there's, and you can, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but more of that popping up, like more of smaller farms
Yes.
to a certain extent. And
Yes.
so maybe I'm wrong on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and no, you're truthful. That is truthful. So there's more and more smaller farms popping up all the time. I think the one thing that people don't realize is, and I've met Joel Salatin, and I love his ideas. I love his ideology. I love how he farms. I think there's lots of great things there. But I've also talked to some smaller producers too, like who have said like, that's all great here, but it still is so hard in reality. Like, grow your chickens and bring them to market. Well,
It's not that easy.
it's not easy. It honestly, and there's so many parts to it. You have to be a good farmer, and you have to be a good marketer, and you have to have good customer service, and you have to like
there's few people who can do all of that.
and in all honesty, I'm not the best farmer.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm great with customer service and farmers markets, but I'm not the best farmer. Like there's lots of things on my farm that I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, it's like it can be intimidating because there's, and similar to what you were saying, we can cut that part out.
Yeah, sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah, because that's like my personal address.
Yeah. We'll cut that out. Eric was just saying that he feels guilty because a lot of his family knows farming, but he doesn't know.
I'm city slicker.
And I think if you and sorry,
Don't feel guilty.
Well, I mean, I don't feel guilty, but it's like it's so important, and just the fact that I have very little knowledge about what goes into it, it's like, well, but I mean, hey, we're having the conversation, and
Absolutely. And that's where you can go to, and you can read those books, you can watch the videos. Like I would love nothing more. I'm not tech savvy, but I would love nothing more than to do like a freaking reality TV show on me. Like, because it's
just so people know,
it's insane. Like it's honestly insane. But back to your point, like back when my parents or your parents, right, were young, you're one generation removed. Well, now you're like lots of like back in the day, my uncle farmed or my grandpa farmed or my aunt farmed or whoever farmed. But now you're so many generations removed that you have a whole generation of kids that they just have never had that opportunity, right? They don't.
100%.
Yeah.
I lost it.
You lost it.
I lost it. But yeah, no, I think that's why I think it's important to just to talk about it so people know. We were talking about it's Joe Salatin, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and he's kind of like the Beyond Organic kind of. Oh yeah, we were, and his ideology is great, but kind of like how we talked about earlier, ideology and reality like rarely align. So it's a lot. Although it's great, it is much harder than it is than just just start your farm and sell to direct people.
It's one of the hardest jobs.
It's much more involved than people
is.
realize. And I think maybe you can comment on this as well too. Is like I feel like so that anecdotally for me that book got me really interesting, but also the Little Big Farm on Netflix, that was a big one.
Yeah,
and I would imagine that brought people like
Yellowstone.
Or Yellowstone as well too. Kind of, and I think that's it's a net positive because people are thinking more about like their food and stuff.
Yes,
but there's also it's not 100% truthful and it's not all feel good. It's hard work.
The thing with Joel Salatin is he was
Joel, not
Joel.
Okay.
Yeah, Joel Salatin is. I think that's who it is. I don't know. One of us is wrong.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter who. When you have your farm paid for, makes a big difference than if you have a huge mortgage payment over your head. The level of hard gets harder, right? And so Joel, I think, is and don't quote me on this. I don't actually know, but I would guess that he is a second, third, fourth generation farmer. Well, you've got your base of land
paid for.
Right? And so that makes a big difference. If someone would come and just miraculously pay my mortgage, like
Right.
I'd be sitting here not saying, well, it's fucking hard. Like I'd be like, yeah, it's hard, but we're making it and whatever. It's just when
there's an additional pressure. Yeah. That comes with that.
yes. And that's farming though. Like you go into debt and you have big bills and like your bills are huge. Any farmer you talk to, their bills are huge. Like,
yeah, easy. Yeah. Even like what you think would be a small thing is usually much, much bigger than you think it is.
So in a household, if you have something break down and you have something go wrong and it costs you $100, you're like, oh, shit, like, that really sucks. For me, it's 1,000, like, but it's an economy of scale, right? So for a big farm, it might be 10,000. But it's that way with everything. It's just the amount of zeros, right? Yeah. And so I was telling you about another fellow market person that we have this big fight. And I won't even get into why we were fighting, but we were at odds with each other. We were friends, and then slowly over time we got at odds with each other, and we ended up having this huge fight at a farmer's market. And it was really ugly and bad. But I am so thankful that they had the courage to come over and talk to me. Mm-hmm. And because by the end of that conversation, we were both standing there crying, saying it's hard, and we were both facing the same thing. What we're doing is hard, and you're fighting for your family, and you're fighting for, to just try and survive. And so we're fighting for the same thing, but we were fighting like this, and instead of, and that's hard, right? And so, it's,
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I can't remember if we talked about this before, like there is like a lot of hobby farms popping up kind of thing as well too. And I think it's like, it's net good, but like, there's a lot of like, it's not profit driven really, or thing like that, where it's like, there's not that pressure of like, fuck, I have to pay this off kind of thing.
That is a big difference too, because there's a big difference between me that if I don't do my job correctly, not only do I not feed my children, but all of the people that I hire, they don't feed their children. Yeah. And so I have a lot of people that are under my care that I'm responsible for, and that's pressure, right? Yeah. Whereas someone who they have a couple acres, they're doing it on the side, they actually have one of them has a full-time job, that is different. Yeah. It's good, it's necessary, I think it's fantastic, but
it's different.
The pressure level is different.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Sorry, what you were going to say?
No, I was just agreeing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess like in Alberta, is that a common thing, like hobby farming?
Oh, more and more and more. Okay. And especially as we're looking at different things happening globally, banks, all of the way. There's lots of plausible things that may or may not happen right now.
Bullish volatility. Things are going up and down.
Exactly. Yeah. And so more and more people are looking to, how can I self-sustain myself, right? How can I not rely on a grocery store? Last summer, I had people in my booth in tears because they were worried about how they were going to get their food. Yeah. So food security is a big thing right now. Yeah. Because in the cities, you have 3 days. Your grocery stores are out of food in 3 days.
Yeah, that's what that's why I asked that question. I was curious, is like, so like what theoretically, right? Like awful thing happens. So
yes,
I guess like
whatever it is. Yeah. And I hope I hope it's all wrong.
Hopefully nothing happens.
Hopefully nothing happens. Yeah.
It's still hunky dory. But I think like the best thing is like, diversify. So like, sure, like let's imagine this goes on, but I feel like it's a good thing that there's lots of people growing food in your kind of local, like direct, just because it like diversifies you. So it's like, okay, this thing goes away. All right, there's still this.
And I think that's why Know Your Farmer is so important, because let's say something in the world went crazy and we couldn't use our debit cards anymore. Yeah. Or whatever it might be. Or, or cash, or like, or there's food shortages or whatever. And if I had food,
become the big daddy.
That relationship is really important, right? Yeah. And I'm going to, That would be really hard if I had to choose. That'd be really hard if I ever had to choose who to sell to and who not to. But
Yeah, 100%.
I would probably lean towards the people that have supported me all along. So if
Yeah.
I recognize you,
Yeah, yeah, and I
You
think
know?
I think when it comes to anyone in that situation, like it becomes like Sophie's choice, right?
Yeah.
Like and I think humans behaviorally they trust the people they know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So not saying that you're going to be in that situation.
I hope I
hopefully,
never am.
Hopefully, none of us
I
ever
ho-
have to be in that situation.
I hope not. But it just shows the
yeah.
importance of know your farmer, right? Because if something ever went sideways, if you know where your food's coming from and you know where you can get your, your beef and your chicken and your veggies and your dairy and your, that more local system, like.
Yeah, I think it's a net healthier system as well too.
But even in COVID, when they were shutting down borders and stuff like that, if those trucks didn't come up here delivering food, we'd be out.
Yeah,
it was April.
Yeah, people would die for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, what do you think there would be enough so like let's say that happened, do you think you'd be able to so kind of let's say the current regime or system doesn't work anymore, do you think there'd be able to be like a shift to like fully self-sustaining like within the province, or even like if we think about like
to be brutally honest with you, the cities would be in trouble.
Okay. Yeah.
Brutally honest.
Yeah, just a lot of mouths to feed, not enough stuff.
Not enough stuff to go around.
Okay.
Not enough access to it. Not enough. Yeah.
Interesting.
The cities would be in trouble.
Yeah.
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 Nice. I'm just thinking of like The Last of Us was filmed here, and I was just thinking that I watched it on I guess it was Sunday.
Yeah.
What's
that?
So that was it's kind of like an apocalypse show.
Is it on Netflix?
It's on
Crave. It was
Crave.
Okay.
HBO production.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was shot in Calgary, so I'm just imagining the scenes. Like there's like all these like destroyed cars, and there's one scene on the the 4th Avenue flyover kind of going into downtown. It's like all
Shows the
apocalypse,
skyline.
Yeah.
It's all like weeded over.
Yeah. But no, I think it's important, and it's like, well, yeah, it's like I think it's important for. I find that it's so funny because like we talk about it's like urban and rural life, and really anywhere in North, like I guess like America and Canada as well too, is just like the life is so different.
Yep.
And I think it's important for both to be exposed to.
Yes.
Because it's just like the things you deal with on the day to day are like vastly different.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I go downtown and I'm like, whoa, like.
Yeah, and I see, and
it's totally foreign to me.
Yeah, and anecdotally, like for like the people that I know, for the people who live in out in like in a rural community or something like that. Yeah, I see them do the same thing. It's like, yeah, and there's it's also anxiety inducing, and like there's like and some people love it and some people don't, right? But it's also it's a bit about like how you're raised as well too. And so I think, but I think it's good for both people to get exposure, because I think it's good for the city people to go out and be like, oh, like this is where all this shit comes from. And also it's like really, for me at least, it's like there is hard work, but also you're in the beauty of nature a little bit. So it's like there's a more of like a respect and awe, and also like a de-stress that comes from that. Mm-hmm. So and by when I say de-stress, I mean like DE stress, like you're not in distress. De-stressed.
Well, it depends on if you're just coming to like hang out at the farm. Yeah, that's not stressful. But
but if you're coming to work, it's stressful.
Well, if you're trying to run the farm, it's
it's
stressful.
it's even more stressful. Yeah.
I'm on edge all the time.
Yeah. But even like just coming out to hang out at the farm is valuable, because you learning. You learn and you understand this is part of what makes this possible.
Well, and the ideology. So ideally, it should be done like this, but because
these are
that's
the
really expensive, or the pressures, or the this or that, it's actually done like this because that's reality.
Yeah.
There's like the ideology of it, and then there's the reality of it.
Yeah, the fancy Instagram marketing of it, and then
I'll tell you an honest story. I mean, I've got chickens, and so I had a chicken that was not, doing so great or whatever. And I've got this guy living in my yard, and he's city guy, animal loving, which is great, fantastic. But he brought this chicken to my door. And for me to call a vet or to bring it into the vet, like that does not pencil out. So he brings this chicken to my door. This chicken isn't doing so well. And I said, yeah, that really sucks. I said, it's okay. Give it to me and I'll take care of it. And
Yeah.
I didn't take it to the vet.
Yeah, things die. Like that's
Took him to another farm with all the other chickens.
What's that Yellowstone? The train station.
Yeah,
like,
the train station.
Yeah. So, and I mean that's sad, but that's also reality. Like, yeah, and I'm not, and it was probably the most humane thing for that chicken, right? Like, because like to put it through the pain and the, stress and whatever. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's
that's maybe not a great thing to say. People might not like to hear that, but that's reality.
Yeah, and I think that's important to hear.
Yeah. My dog lives outside. Like some people might go, oh, like it's minus 30. It was minus 37 at the farm one night. Like the dog was still outside, laid with the sheep. Like they were. It was just fine. Like
my parents' dog. He's similar built, not a Buster. Yeah, he was an Australian Shepherd, cattle dog, like a blue heeler, and and a Bernese mountain dog. And so he had two double coat, thick coat, minus 35 at night. He's like the way he would signal. I don't like dog trainers out there. I don't know if this is the correct way, but he'd like kind of like scratch the door if he wanted to go outside, and then vice versa. He would scratch the door when he was outside if he wanted to be back in. It'd be like minus 30, minus 40, and he's just like scratch the door. He wants to be let outside. Boom, you let him outside. It's like, okay, is he just gonna like use the washroom, or do you just wants to? And he just goes and he just lies. Especially like older in life, a little bit of arthritis, but he just lay down. He's got like this little area like right outside like on the porch, and he just lay there and be like, dude, like, are you cold? He's probably boiling inside.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So he's just
like, I have a mini Aussie too, and the mini Aussie does get to come in the house, but again, like it gets too hot, and he wants out. Like, it was minus 5 or 6 or 10 the other night, and he slept outside. Like, he doesn't want to be in the house. Like,
and it's funny though,
and it's a nice life for them because they're free to roam. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, same with our dog. Kind of, my parents live out out by Bright Creek, right? And so he was a roamer, right? Yeah. He like roams, and it's a dog's life. Like,
that's the best life for a dog, right? Yeah. Like
100%.
Yeah. Not taking away from the city dogs that live in the house and dog daycare and like all the treats and stuff like that. Like
But I think like it's almost like people where it's like anxiety is a bit like it's like that's not the natural state, right? Like even for humans, like that's not the natural state, and it's like so people get a little worked up sometimes.
But it's where you live. It's what you've been.
It's what you know.
And so again, when it comes to food, like it's what you know, right? Like
100%. Yeah. A little bit. Switching topics here. I'm just kind of like I'm just looking at the time here, and we're brushing up on that 3-hour mark, but not there yet. But before I let you, I wanted to ask you a bit more about your. We talked about it. I think I don't know if it was recorded or not. But you're in town today to pick up some pickled vegetables, or you were picking up jars.
Pickles, jarred pickles. Yeah.
So can you tell me about that portion of your business? It's kind of like a food. It's like
so it's
processing, right?
It's value added, and so I have a guy I work with, and so we work together as a team, and so he jars up pickles and relishes and salsas and all that kind of stuff, and that just adds value to my table. So while I have my greenhouse stuff, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers. Then I went, like we talked about, we went to the field crops, potatoes, onions, beets, cabbages, squash, zucchini. This is just one more value-added thing that I can have at my booth to help subsidize and help make the farm run. So,
So do you drop off your like cucumbers to him to pickle? Is that what he does?
Yeah, so he takes some of my stuff, but again, I'm authentic and honest. Not everything that's in the jars is grown by me. Yeah. It just really helps the farm. Like pineapple habanero hot pepper jelly. Like I didn't grow pineapples. Like
fair enough. Nice. Okay, and so because I know you do, so you do salsa as well too.
So the salsa, it's very important to me that my tomatoes go in the salsa because
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So so does he? And so you'll kind of like put put everything in your truck or your trailer kind of thing, and you bring it to him. He dices it up, pickles it, and kind of thing.
Yeah, and we just work together as a team, and
Nice.
yeah, he jars it all up, and then I bring it back, and it's all done on commercial kitchen and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
So where can you find that stuff? Will that be at your farmers markets?
yeah, anywhere you find me, Shirley's Greenhouse, you can find that stuff. So
Okay. And then
yeah.
also your storefront. What's it called in Olds? It's a
Old's Uptown Market.
Uptown Market.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's just a little market store. So I love small business. I love small vendors. I love the underdog. I love
Yeah.
local. So
100%.
that's what I'm about. So it just is a way to get small vendors and small businesses into more locations, and this is just a rural location.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. And so for your value adds, it's the pickles, it's the
Relish,
relish,
salsa. I've got some jams. Obviously, I didn't grow the fruit in the jams, right?
Yeah.
So it's just value added. It helps my farm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you vet where you're getting
Mhm.
all the stuff that
yeah,
you
yeah,
get.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
just to summarize, before I think, are you okay if we wrap it up or?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
This is I'm here. I've had fun. This has been a great conversation. This has gone fast, actually.
I've
It
learned
goes by
I've learned a
really
lot.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to summarize, Kay, the heuristics to ask your grocer or your farmer is, when was it picked?
Who grew it? When
who
was
grew
it
it?
grown? Or no, who grew it? How was it grown? When was it picked? No, what were my questions?
When, who?
Who grew it? How was it grown? When was it picked?
I guess those are the
How
big
did you
three.
grow?
How did you grow?
Yeah.
And,
Just ask lots of questions
yeah. Okay.
and kind
And
of
avoid stickers.
demand the answers. And I mean, stickers aren't wrong. It's just meant for a different system. Stickers are meant for the grocery system.
It usually means, not all the case, but it meant it's grown further away. Usually, that's a rough. Would I say that's a rough?
Roughly. I mean,
bit
in
of a
Alberta, we
heuristic.
have
Yeah.
Alberta grown greenhouse products in every store. There's one.
I guess that's true.
There's
yeah.
one brand in Alberta now, one sales entity, and so there's one brand in Alberta, and they're all great farmers that sell through that brand, and
Yeah.
it's a great industry, but it's meant more for that wholesale through that way.
Yeah. Yeah. But when you're at the farmer's market.
When you're at the farmers markets, not everything that glitters is gold, and
Yeah.
so you want to make sure who
vet it
grew
out.
it, when was it picked, how was it grown, like where did you get this stuff from, like.
Yeah. Oh, can I Google it? Can I see your?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Can I come to your farm? Can I? Yeah, you want to make sure because I've seen all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I've seen greenhouse grown stuff that is said that it's spray free or grown without pesticide, and I'm like, I actually know where you got that from,
Yeah,
and
that's not
they're
the
great
case.
growers, and they will only use as a last resort. But I don't think that you could say that about that product. Like,
Yeah.
it's not bad product, and I would even personally eat that product, but.
It's not. Yeah.
It's about
The
being
authenticity
Yeah.
and the transparency and the I'm the farmer that grew it
Yeah. And
isn't there.
yeah,
It's more of a I bought and sold it. And again, there's nothing wrong with buying and selling, but just tell the fucking truth. Like
yeah.
how to rake carrots.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
All right, Don, thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much.
You've been a great guest. I think you've
Thank you.
told Erik and I and educated Erik and I on a lot.
I
Hopefully,
learned a lot.
hopefully the listener,
Thank you.
whoever you are, gets a lot out of this as well too. And
Yeah.
and before you go, can you just where can we find you again on Instagram, Facebook, or anything?
I
like
do
that?
most of my stuff. I'm old. Facebook is mostly how I do a lot of my stuff. I do have an Instagram page, but I can't find it back right now, so I got to figure that out. I've got a website I've got updated this fall or this spring.
We'll leave a link in the
link in the
Thank you.
description. And it's
Yeah.
Shirley's Greenhouse.
Shirley's Greenhouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is Dawn, not Shirley, but she will answer to Shirley.
I will. You can call me whatever you want to. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Kate, really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Don.
you.
Okay.
Take care.
Dappa-doo, two white guys in a wheelchair.